to everyone. It's my pleasure to host VULNCON 2020 on behalf of NOOB. For those who are here for the first time, let me introduce myself to you. Hola amigos, I am Manashi, your host for this event. Day 1 of VULNCON 2020 was a great success, all thanks to our speakers, audience, team and our supporters. Hope you enjoyed and learned a lot yesterday and are packed with enthusiasm to grab on more today. So, let the show begin.
Welcome to Cyber Mayhem. The match will begin in 3, 2, 1. Flags have been planted. Your team has owned a user flag. Your team has cloned a machine. Warning, your team is losing availability points. May your experience lead you to victory.
Are you looking to take the next step in your cybersecurity career or open the door to cybersecurity from other areas in IT? Security Plus is the leading global certification that proves you have the core cybersecurity skills to advance your career. Nearly 600,000 IT pros have earned CompTIA Security Plus. Once you have Security Plus, the #1 core cybersecurity certification on the market, you can problem solve a wider variety of today's complex security issues. Prepare yourself with hands-on coverage of the latest trends and techniques. You'll learn the 5 areas of security, including attacks, threats, and vulnerabilities, architecture and design, implementation, operations and incident response, and GRC. Security Plus has become the gold standard for corporations and governments worldwide. For years, it has been the primary choice for fulfilling U.S. Department of Defense 8140-8570 compliance. Security Plus has demonstrated its ability to make sure you have the right foundation for your cyber career. Because Security Plus has helped organizations for years, it's no wonder that more and more people in various job roles are turning to Security Plus to enrich their security skill set. Study with the official CompTIA content exclusively developed for Security Plus and hit the ground running with the best cybersecurity certification on the market. Prepare yourself to address today's threats as well as anticipate the next attack. Head on over to comptia.org/security to learn more and secure your future.
To begin the day 2 of VULNCON 2020, we are pleased to have Devansh Batam with us, who will deliver a talk on how not to fail bug bounties, recon, automation, hunting cloud and hidden assets. So, grab on your notebooks and your coffee. Over to you, sir.
Hello all, I hope your day is going wonderful so far. My name is Devansh and some of you might know me as Asmodeus. I am a security researcher and a bug bounty hunter. And before we start, I'd like to thank NOOB Army for organizing this virtual conference and giving me this opportunity to talk about my experiences in the field of recon and bug hunting. And with that being said, let's move to our agenda for today's session. We will start by busting some common myths that people often have about recon. Then we will talk about the art of recon, where I will be discussing about 5 major tips or takeaways that I have learned from my past experiences. Then we will move on to the topic of weaponizing favicons for fun and profit, where I will discuss how you can use the favicon hashes for fingerprinting different CMS frameworks, services, and even microservices. Then I will talk about continuous monitoring of certificate transparency logs for continuous asset profiling and discovery, and how you can set up a notification based monitoring tool for catching domains from those SSL certificates in almost real time. After that, we will talk about the creative aspect of the recon and how you can be different from others. I will be giving a few examples and the rest depends on your own creativity. Then comes managing your recon data or recon data management, where I will show some best practices that I personally follow and you can follow too for storing your recon data, and that will make the retrieval of data very efficient and easy. And last but not least, I will talk about hunting assets in the cloud and how you can perform fingerprinting on them, and yeah, some other cool stuff as well. Recently, I have seen a lot of misleading information about recon. At least for me, I don't find that information to be very accurate, and these myths can be very demotivating, especially for newcomers. And hence I have decided to talk about them in this session. And hopefully by the end of this session, you will be having a very good idea of effective and creative recon. I will talk about some myths and their counterpoints as well. The counterpoints are nothing. They are actually the corrective version of that myth. And on the left side, you're seeing a myth, and on the right side, there is a counterpoint. Everyone is using same tools for recon, and I will be getting only duplicate results. This statement is kind of demotivating, especially for newcomers. The correct version should be everyone is using same tools, and with a little touch of creativity, I might get unique results. And believe me, you don't even need to add that little touch of creativity. It is there by default, as we all have different perspective towards things. No two-person think the same, so the chances of you getting unique results are still very high than you might think. Here is another one. Everyone is using their custom-made recon frameworks and high-end tools that are running almost 24/7 on their machines or on their VPS machines. And how I'm going to catch up with them? Here the counterpoint goes like, recon is a never-ending process. No one can automate the entire process. So the chances of you getting unique results and good results are still very high. And see how just adding a counterpoint generates a lot of hope. And at the end of the day, it's all about having a positive perspective towards things. Uh, Now let's talk about the art of recon. When I was starting in InfoSec, especially in bug hunting, I had a very hard time while finding the right balance between different things. I was overwhelmed by so much things while doing recon and while bug hunting. How much time to spend on hacking and how much time to spend on recon. All these things were so overwhelming for me at that time. I experimented with a lot of different approaches, and from my past experiences of success and failures, I narrowed down 5 major tips or takeaways that I personally follow, and personally for me, these takeaways proved to be very useful and resulted in some good outcomes and yeah, bounty as well. The first one is keep it simple. There are tons of different tools. Every time you will log in into Twitter, you will see the release of some new tool. I'm not saying that learning and using new tools is a bad thing, but you don't need to know about all of them. You don't need to use all of them against your target. So yeah, keep your process simple and make sure you're understanding what you are doing. You should be well aware of what is going under the hood on your each step. The second one is modify your approaches according to the scope of the program. This might seem a very simple tip, but yeah, you must consider while hacking on different programs. Third one is make it creativity. Make it creative. Add something that makes your approach different from others. I will be talking about this in upcoming slides. Set a pivot point between the time to be spent on actual hacking and the recon. This is a situation where I used to struggle a lot, and the best way of finding the right balance is keeping things simple and experiment with different methodologies and approaches and decide what works best for you. If one thing works best for one person, it doesn't mean that it will work for you too. And that's why you should never stop doing experiments with your approaches of recon and just find what works best for you and go with that. Last but not least, keep it organized. Now suppose you have done your recon on a target. Saving your data in text files is not an efficient approach. I personally store my data, recon data, in a MongoDB cluster, or sometimes I use CouchDB. CouchDB provides API and you can integrate that API into your web UI for visualizing your data, and by visualizing your data you will be having a very good visibility, and the chances of you missing any important asset will be decreased. And yeah, and there is one more option while using MongoDB. MongoDB provides a very good feature, that is MongoDB charts, and you can use MongoDB charts for visualizing your data as well, and you can even perform queries on your data. As this session is mainly focused upon the creative aspect of the recon, I will be talking about some relatively underrated techniques that are not very widely used for, and you can use them for various purposes and not just bug hunting. And with that being said, let's now talk about fingerprinting using favicon hashes. And before we talk further, let's first understand what is a favicon. Modern browsers will show you a small icon to the left side of the web page title, and that icon is known as favicon. This icon is fetched from the endpoint /favicon.ico, and browsers automatically request it when you browse any website. For example, the favicon of google.com looks something like this. And let's just quickly try to load it in our browser. This is the favicon of Google. Let's just open the network tab for analyzing any requests made by the browser. As you can see, the browser automatically requested the favicon for google.com, and in the response you are seeing the actual favicon. Its dimensions are usually 32 by 32, and the header that is sent in the response is like image/x-icon. Fingerprinting using favicons was originally introduced by Shodan, and you can use the search filter http.favicon.hash colon and then followed by favicon hash of any service. It is useful for finding IPs that are running any specific service. For example, in this case, I have entered the favicon hash of Spring Boot instance, and you can see I got around 2 lakh results, and all these services, all these IP addresses are using Spring Boot instance, and they are running Spring Boot service. A few months back, I saw this tweet. Here, the researcher used favicon hash of Spring Boot service to find a Spring Boot instance that was misconfigured, and the env and heap dump endpoints were publicly accessible. Those who don't know what a heap dump is more of like a memory dump thing that contains a lot of sensitive information, and sometimes it contains some keys and cookies as well. And the data that it contains is highly sensitive, and this is why the researcher got such a decent bounty. And after seeing that tweet, I wrote an article a few months back discussing more about fingerprinting using favicon hashes, and also released a tool called favfreak. The purpose of this tool is to fingerprint for commonly used services using their favicons. And before jumping into using favfreak, let me give a small demo on how to calculate favicon hash of any domain. Here is a simple Python script used to calculate favicon hash for any URL. It takes a URL as an argument. It then fetches the favicon ICO. It calculates its hash value, and then it outputs the obtained hash value. So now let's try to run this program against google.com. Running this Python program is very simple. You just have to supply the URL as the argument of the program, and it should return the favicon hash of google.com. You can see we got the favicon hash of google.com. Now let's try to search for this hash in Shodan and see how many IP addresses are using the favicon hash of google.com. The filter is http.favicon.hash colon, then you have to paste the favicon hash of Google. And you will be needing an account. If you are not having a Shodan account, then it will not work. Just create a free account and you can do this. We are getting around 69,000 results, and it is obvious that not all of them are owned by Google, and dozens of the IP addresses will be phishing sites or malicious websites that are not owned by Google, but they are impersonating to be Google, maybe some phishing campaigns. So yeah, this technique is also very useful in detecting phishing sites. Now let's do a quick demo of favfreak and how it works. You can clone favfreak from my GitHub. I released this tool back in July, and how it works is very simple. Let me show you. It is having a dictionary that contains around 500 favicon hashes of different services, CMS frameworks, and even microservices. It accepts a list of URL or IP addresses on standard input, and it calculates the favicon hash for each URL. And if the favicon hash of any URL matches with the already saved favicon hash in our dictionary, then you will see the result in the output. Alright, let me give you a quick demo of favfreak. Installing favfreak is very easy. You just have to clone it from my repository and install the requirements. In the requirements, you will be needing a module that is mmh3. So you can just pip install mmh3. I will be running favfreak on this targets.txt. The targets.txt format is something like this: IP addresses, and they have a protocol prepended on them, either HTTP or HTTPS. If you will not be having that protocol prepended, then it will not work. And let's see how many targets we are having. We are having 100 IP addresses, unique IP addresses, and I will run favfreak on this. Running favfreak is very simple. Just cat the targets.txt and python 3 favfreak.py. Now it started fetching those IP favicon ICOs of these IP addresses. Yeah, so it will take some time. It is now calculating the favicon ICO and matching the favicon ICO with our favicon ICOs that are already saved in the dictionary. And yeah, it's completed its process. You can see it fingerprinted these 5 services. Sophos user portal, VPN portal, it is used by these 3 IP addresses. Fortinet is used by these 3 IP addresses. Wildfly, Barracuda, and Sonic Wall is used by these 2 IP addresses. And in the summary, you can see this favicon hash occurred 3 times, this occurred 2 times, and all of them occurred almost 1 time. And these are the hashes that do not match any of these services. So you can add your own fingerprints. As of now, I'm having around 500 fingerprints, and you can customize it and add your own fingerprints for more effective fingerprinting. Now let's discuss a use case that you can follow while using favfreak. Now suppose you have a service and that is vulnerable to some specific CVE. And you know the favicon hash of XYZ service. That XYZ service uses a specific specific favicon ICO, and you can add the favicon ICO of that XYZ service in your favfreak's fingerprint dictionary and run it over your recon data. Recon data might be IP addresses, URLs, or domain names with HTTP or HTTPS protocol prepended, and it will filter out the URLs that are running XYZ service. And then you can manually test whether that XYZ service or URL is vulnerable to that specific CV or not. And if you want to learn more about fingerprinting using favicon hashes, then you can refer to my article. It is available on my Medium. All the links in this slide are clickable, and I will release this slide after this talk, so you can get maybe from my Twitter handle, so keep an eye on there. Alright, we have talked enough about fingerprinting using favicon hashes. Now let's talk about a little bit of continuous recon stuff using certificate transparency logs that are also called CT logs. In bug bounties, if you're not first, then you are last. There is no such thing as a silver or a bronze medal. Asset discovery plays a very important role, and if you can detect or identify a newly added asset earlier than others, then the chances of you finding or reporting a security flaw in that assets are higher than others. Makes sense, right? And before understanding CT logs, let's first understand what is the basic structure of an SSL certificate. An SSL certificate basically binds together a domain name, service, or host name and an organizational entity that can be a company name or location. Certificate transparency logs are very simple. They are network services that maintain cryptographically assured append-only records of certificates. Anyone can submit certificates to a log, although here's the catch: certificate authorities will likely to be the first and foremost submitters. And likewise, anyone can query a log for a cryptographic proof, which can be used to verify that the log is behaving properly or verify that a particular certificate has been logged or not. And personally, I am monitoring certificate transparency logs for a very long time now, and it gave me a lot of successful results in the past. And the main inspiration behind this was Subalert. It was by Yasin Abaukar. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing the name wrong, and don't mind it. And what it does was it basically checks crt.sh for subdomains, and it can be executed periodically. However, I'm using somewhat different approach, and instead of looking into crt.sh periodically, I am extracting domains from live certificate transparency feeds. So the chances of me finding a newly added asset earlier is higher as compared to others, right? And with that being said, or with that being in mind, I made this thing. This is called CertEagle. The workflow of CertEagle is indeed very simple. There are 3 basic steps involved in this process. The first one is it monitors the real-time certificate transparency log feed. and it extracts the domain name from that feed. In the second step, it matches the extracted domain names against the domains that we want to match, right? And the domains that we want to match will be placed under our domains.yaml file. And in the end, if a domain gets matched or we are getting a potential hit, then a Slack notification will be sent to our Slack channel. All right, let's move forward. And here is what a Slack notification looks like. So let me give you a quick demo how it works. You can find Cert Eagle on my GitHub. The way I wrote this code is very readable, and you can read the code. There is no rocket science here, and only 146 lines, and it is readable so you can understand what is going on, which function is sending notifications, and which function is for extracting the domains, and which function is matching domains with the domains that are already stored in the domains.yaml file. Now let's do a quick demo. There are three basic requirements. You will be needing a VPS with Python installed. You will be needing a Slack channel where your notifications will be sent, and you will be needing domains.yaml file. In the domains.yaml file, you will put the keywords or domains that you want to monitor. For example, in this case, you can see I want to monitor for these keywords: pay, login, admin, cpanel, and support. And in the config.yaml file, you have to put your Slack webhook URL. So right now there is nothing in here, so you have to replace this string with your Slack webhook URL. It will start by https slack.com or something like that. And let's run this. Running this program is very simple. Python 3 certicle.py, and it should run now. As you can see, the Slack notifications are off as I have not put any Slack webhook URL in this file. You can see we got our first hit. It got matched because it is having the keyword pay in it, right? It is got matched because it is having the keyword pay in it, and so on and so forth. It will keep on matching. You can see here admin is matched, cpanel is matched. So it is matching the domains based on those keywords that I have entered. It will go on forever. This is why I suggest to use this program on a VPS where you are running this program 24/7, and whenever a domain gets matched, you will get instant notification on the Slack channel, and also these domains will be saved in these files. For example, if you'll see here in the output directory, there is a file name found domains.log, and if you will just cat out this file, admin dot, you can see all these domains and the date when they got matched, right? So the whole process was very simple, and this simple technique is very effective. I have found dozens of issues by just using this. Okay, now let's move forward, shall we? And here is a simple use case that you can use using bug bounty targets data with Cert Eagle. So here is this repository that is arcadet bug bounty targets data. It maintains the target domains that are in scope of various bug bounty programs or responsible disclosure programs, and some VDPs too. So what I did, I extracted all these. I just pulled the domain names from here, and I saved these domains in this file, bug bounty data.yaml. And all these domains are some kind of bug bounty programs, or they are in scope of any VDP or responsible disclosure programs. So you can feed them in domains.yaml file, and it will keep on running, and whenever a subdomain is found or whenever a matching keyword is found, you will get instant notification, and yeah, you can then carry on with your recon process further. I think that makes sense. All right, let's move forward and talk a little bit more about Creative Recon. This year I have submitted more than 70 injection related vulnerabilities such as XSS command injection, HTML injection, SQL injection, etc. And in around 90% of my reported vulnerabilities, the injection point was either a parameter or an endpoint of a URL. And hence I have decided to talk a little bit about my own methodology that I use for discovering these hidden endpoints, directories, and parameters. I will be talking about two different techniques that I use, and I got pretty good results in the form of bounties in very recent past. I will be talking about a tool of mine that is Param Spider and how you can use it with GF. GF is a wraparound grep developed by Tom Nom Nom. You can Google Param Spider from my GitHub. It is available over here. It is written in Python, so the only requirement you have is you should have Python installed on your system, and there are some other requirements in the form of modules. You can just pip install those requirements. And as for GF, you can install or clone GF from Tom Nom Nom's GitHub. And the only requirement is you must have Golang installed on your system. And here is one more platform that you can use. It is urlscan.io. And how you can use URL scan is very simple. You have options for crafting queries, and on base of your queries, you will be getting some results, right? So I will give you demo of both of these techniques. So let's move forward and start with our demo of Param Spider and GF. I have already cloned Param Spider. And for demo purposes, I will be using Param Spider on our testing website, that is testphp.vulnweb.com. Using Param Spider is very simple. All you have to do is Python 3 paramspider.py, the name of the domain, that is testphp.vulnweb.com. L is high, that is level is set to high, so it will find nested parameters as well. And this E flag is for exclude, so I am excluding all the JS and CSS files. You can even include some files that are not very useful or that are not very juicy, such as some image files, ICO, or maybe we can do JPG and PNG as well. Alright, now let's run this. How it works is very simple. It will fetch URLs from web archive and it will show the results. As you can see, we got some pretty good hits, but as of now it is kind of messy and we're not getting any abstract result from it. The one thing that you might notice is it replaced the parameter value with a keyword fuzz. So it will be easy for you to fuzz that injection point. But there are certain parameters that are more likely to be vulnerable, such as redirect equals to parameter is more likely to be vulnerable with an open redirect vulnerability, such as, and some other examples are file equals to. It is more likely to be vulnerable with an local file inclusion vulnerability. So what I did is I created some profiles, GF profiles, and you can use those profiles with GF and it will grab the results from the output. As of now, I have my output stored in this directory, that is output. So let's cd into the directory and you can see we have our output here, test php. These are the URLs. Now I have to filter out the juicy URLs. So I will be using GF. With GF, I have to supply an argument, and that argument is actually a JSON file. So right now it is saying no such patterns, and now I will apply our JSON file, that is potential. You can see we got some hits. And what is this potential here? Let me show you. The potential file is stored here, that is in the home directory potential.json, and I have enumerated or dumped these kind of parameters from my old reports and from publicly disclosed reports, and these parameters are most likely to be vulnerable with some kind of vulnerabilities, either open redirect, SSRF, LFI, and different kind of injection vulnerabilities. So I am grepping these parameters in this test php.vulnweb.com.txt file, and in the end I am getting some results. Let's see here. We got these results. PID equals to fuzz, file equals to 8, so this parameter is most likely to be vulnerable with an local file inclusion vulnerability, and after that you have to test it manually, or you can use some kind of fuzzer. Writing and fuzzer for testing these kind of vulnerabilities is not a very big task. You can easily do it. All you have to do is write some if else conditions. So if this is happening, then this should be the output, and so on and so forth. Now let's move forward with our URL scan, and this thing urlscan.io has given me so many good results in the past. I got so many bounties by just using urlscan.io, but you have to use it in a creative way. I will be showing some examples how you can use it, and the rest depends on your own creativity. So let's move forward and use it. You can see I'm on the home page of urlscan.io. You have to go on this search menu. After that, click on this help option, and you will be seeing some help and examples. In this section, there are some rules that you have to follow while crafting queries. And before proceeding with this, I will give you a little bit of introduction about URL scan, what it is and how it works. So it is a free service to scan and analyze websites where a URL is submitted to URL scan, and an automated process will browse to the URL like a regular user and record the activity. And after that, that URL is stored in the URL scans database. So you can use this search bar for searching specific URLs using some operators and filters. And you can even use different kind of operators, plus, minus, that is, and, or, and even wildcards as well. So let's move forward and give a quick demo of URL scan and how it works. I have mentioned some most common filters that you can use. These filters are already mentioned in this help and example section. In these examples, you can see these kind of queries. I will start with a basic one. For example, you have to find out all the URLs that are having domain google.com in it. Then how you will do it? You have to use this filter page.domain and then google.com. So it will list the URLs that are having google.com in their name. The point to mention here is it will also result in the subdomains of google.com now. So let's test it out. As you can see, we got these results. We got play.google.com because the subdomains are not exclusive. docs.google.com, and we got around 10,000 results. It is more than 10,000, but it generally shows first 10,000 results. Now let's move further and test for some interesting stuff here. Now suppose we have to find URLs that contain the word file in it. So the URLs that are having file directory in it and they belong to google.com. So how we can do it? Page.domain google.com, and we will be using a and filter and operator, sorry. And here we will be using another filter, that is page.url and files. Let's give it a go. You can see google.com and file. So all these URLs are having file directory in them. This is very effective technique in finding some specific directories or endpoints that you are trying to find. And it is possible that those endpoints are not locked anywhere else. They are not publicly available. They are not publicly listed on Google. They are not publicly listed on Web Archive, but they are listed here. So this is a very good resource you can try out. Let's try with some more filters. Let's see what we can do. There is one more interesting filter that you can try. It is ASN. ASN is Autonomous System Number. And let's first grab the ASN of some publicly known company such as PayPal. So ASN of PayPal. Just for testing purposes, I will use this ASN 17012. And now we want URLs of this ASN. So what I will do, ASN and the ASN number with this prefix AS. Hit search and you should be seeing a lot of interesting results. And you can see we got paypal.com, paypal.elastic.dev and different URLs. They all belong to the PayPal's ASN. Now let's move forward and do some more interesting stuff here. You can even see the examples here. There is one more filter that is page.ip, and after that page.ip you have to provide an IP address or a CIDR range. So if I have to test this one, so what we are doing is we are providing this IP range. A point to note here is whenever you will be using a meta characters, these are meta characters, so you have to escape it using a backslash. So this is why this forward slash is escaped with a backslash. And is an operator, and not is and not, and this IP. So we are searching in this CIDR range, but we are excluding results that contain this specific IP address. Let's search here. And we are getting some hits. And so on and so forth. You can go forward. There are a lot of potential here. So you have to play with it, right? You have to form your custom queries. Maybe you have to search for a specific parameter that might be vulnerable. Maybe you have to find some specific files of a target domain. You can even search file name. And one more filter that is very important is server. So if I have to find URLs that are running server Apache, we can find this. You can see we got these hits. And if you will click on the detail, then it will show the server detail as well. You can see we have Apache, Apache. So all these URLs are running Apache. And I think I have talked enough about URL scan. And the more you will use URL scan, the more you will get used to it. And it all depends on how creative you can get. There is no limit. Just go and have fun here. All right, let's move further with our next slide, that is managing your recon data or organizing your data in a meaningful way. Organizing your data is a very underrated art, but believe me, it is very useful and helps in easy and efficient retrieval of information from raw data. I personally use two different databases for storing my recon data, CouchDB and MongoDB. CouchDB is actually a clustered database that allows you to run single logical database server on any number of servers or virtual machines. It also provides an API that you can integrate with your web user interface for populating the data. And the other one that I use very frequently is MongoDB. It has some really great features such as full text search, Atlas, and MongoDB charts for visualizing your data. All right, let's give a quick demo of MongoDB. For demo purposes, I will be using online version of MongoDB. You can install MongoDB locally on your system, but just for the demonstration's sake, I am having this online cluster open. You can create one cluster for free, and the sizes can go up to 512 MB in the free tier. And you can see here I'm having one database named VULNCON, and we have a collection name vuln. So we have to feed our data in this collection. And what type of data MongoDB accepts? It accepts JSON data. So first we have to get the data. And for demonstrating, I will be using the same targets.txt file that I used with Vulnfreak. So the same targets.txt file, it contains 100 targets. What I will do cat targets.txt, and I will run httpx JSON flag, and in the end I am using JQ, that is actually a JSON parser. It will beautify the JSON. So let's run this thing, and we will be getting results in the form of JSON. And what I will do, I will copy paste this data into my MongoDB collection, and then in the end I will try to visualize the data. So just copy one node. In this case I am doing it manually, but you can use some kind of program. You can use PyMongo. It is a Python library for interacting with MongoDB databases. So you can script this whole process, and whenever you will be getting a JSON data as in the result, then you can feed that JSON result into your MongoDB cluster. So you can make a program that automatically updates your MongoDB database whenever a new data comes. In this case, I'm just manually copy pasting this thing. Insert document, click on this little code icon, and go to collections, click on insert document, click on this code icon, remove all of this and paste your data and click on insert. This node will be inserted, and you have to do same for all these results. You can script the whole process and it should be done within seconds. And after, when you are done inserting your data, you can visualize your data using MongoDB charts. You can access your charts from here, or there are some features when you are installing database locally, then you have to do some different process, but that process is very easy. So it will be very easy for you to go through that process. After you will visualize the data using some charts and matrices, your data will look like this. You can create your own dashboard. So you can see in this dashboard, I'm having these URLs sorted by the status codes, title, web server, IP address, content length. I can add more fields if I want to. And the whole data, we can even sort them using their status code, URL, title, and we can even do a full text search. It is a capability of MongoDB. And in the next section of this dashboard, I'm having this HTTP status analysis, where it is just showing how many URLs are 200 OK, how many URLs are 403, and different status codes. They are displayed by different colors. So you can see how visualizing the data makes our data look very elegant, and it is very highly unlikely to miss an important asset. This is why the art of visualizing your data is very important. And here are 3 major outcomes that you can achieve when you will store your data in a right manner. Effective retrieval. You can retrieve your data in easy and efficient manner. You can search through that data in an easy manner, and you can visualize that data, right? So let's move forward and talk about hunting assets in the cloud. Why cloud? Well, the answer to this question is why not? Almost 90% of the Fortune 500 companies are using some part of any cloud service to enhance their users' performance, maybe to store some data, or maybe some S3 buckets and different kind of things. So some major names in cloud space are Amazon, Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure, IBM Cloud, and so on. We can even include names such as Akamai, Cloudflare, and even hosting providers such as GoDaddy, HostGator, Hostinger, and etc. So how we will start hunting assets in the cloud? At this point, we don't have any initial step. So what you can do is, in the first step, you have to find the public ranges or CIDRs of these cloud providers. And how you can do this? Well, the first way is very simple. All you have to do is go to Google and search for this website, bgp.he.net, and in the another tab open IP info and the name of the company. Let's say we want to know the CIDRs of Google, and here enter Microsoft or even Amazon. You can see we got this ASN Google LLC. So basically you have to find all the ASN of Google, and from this ASN you can extract these CIDR ranges, and this ASN is having around this much IP addresses. You can script this whole process, but just for demonstration I will show a kind of hacky way of doing this. Just copy paste this here. And we need to extract these CIDR ranges from all this data. So we don't need all this garbage here. What I will do a regular expression search and replace. You can see I have written a regular expression to match a CIDR range here. I will click on find all. Now it will select all the CIDR ranges. I will cut these out. I will remove all this junk part, and yeah, we got these IP ranges. We have completed the process for one ASN now, and you have to repeat this process for different ASNs. This whole process can be tiring, so it is better not to do this whole thing in this way. Rather, what I will suggest is you can use these scripts. Get google.sh. So what it does is, let me show you the source code. It is a single line curl statement. Then I am using JQ for extracting these fields, and then I am sorting them. So it fetches the cloud.json file from this IP ranges directory. It is hosted on gstatic.com. So all these ranges that Google own will be available here. So there is no need for you to going through copying and pasting all these ranges over and over again. And this data is updated continuously and updated periodically. So you don't have to update your data according to this iipinfo.com. You can create a script that will fetch the data, and your IP ranges file will be updated automatically according to the IP addresses. And in a similar way, I'm having another file that is getaws.py. What it does is it extracts the Amazon web range, Amazon IP ranges that are publicly facing IP ranges basically. It fetches IP ranges.amazonos.com, IP ranges.json, and then I am fetching those IP addresses. I have these two scripts. You can create similar scripts for Azure and for different kind of services. Now let's move forward. After I will be using these kind of scripts, I will be getting CIDR ranges. So I have already compiled a list of CIDR ranges in this file, finalranges.txt. If you will look closely, you can see all these ranges. And let's see how many ranges we got. And this list is not exhaustive. There are multiple other providers that I have not included. I have included major 6 or 7 providers. So we are having around 17,915 CIDRs. Now let's see how many IP addresses are there. And for checking that, I will run mass scan on that IP just for checking out how many IP addresses are there. Let's quit this thing. We have around 31 million IP addresses. So we have a good amount of IP addresses to start with our Cloud Recon. Now you have extracted the CIDR ranges, you have the IP addresses here. What will be your next step? What I usually do is I port scan for port 80 and 443. As some companies do not want to get scanned or port scanned, And scanning for port 80 and 443 is very harmless, so you can do that, right? So let's do this thing, and how it will work is very simple. The previous command, that was mass scan port 443 ILs for input file IP ranges.txt, and if you will run this, and it is advised that you should run this command over a VPS, otherwise this is going to take a very long time, and there are 30 million hosts, so yeah, it will take a very long time. You can even specify a rate parameter here. You can specify at which rate you want your hosts to get port scanned, right? And after you are done, you will be having a list of IP addresses that will be having port 443 open. So you have to prepend HTTPS on them. Just for demo purposes, I have already done that, and in this file result.ip.txt, for just showing you, I will be using only 100 IP addresses. You can see these are the IP addresses that I got by running that mass scan command, and it is having protocol HTTPS prepended, and this is must because we have to feed this data into input of another program. This is why prepending HTTPS protocol is necessary. And let me show you how many IPs are there. I'm showing this demonstration on only 100 IPs. Now what I will do is I will extract domain names or DNS names from SSL TLS certificates of these IP addresses. And for doing that, I will be using a tool of mine, that is SSL extract, and that tool is available over here. SSL extract.py, it is a simple Python script that takes a list of IP addresses on standard input, and in the result you will be getting DNS records. So I will be feeding this result-ips.txt file to my Python file, that is SSL extract.py, and you can see we are starting to get results fetching DNS records from this IP addresses, and we got these many DNS records, and it will complete its process for all 100 IP addresses, and I think it already completed. So for 100 IP addresses it took around 12 seconds. It usually takes less than that, but yeah, it took 12 seconds. And in the end you will get a file, all domains.txt. So from these 100 IP addresses that are having their port 443 open, we got these domain names. So let's see how many domains we got. We got around 655 domain names. So for 100 IP addresses we got 655, and we are having around 31 million plus IP addresses. And when you will port scan 31 million IP addresses for port 443, you will get around maybe 2 lakh or 3 lakh results. And when you will use this script on 2 lakhs or 3 lakh IP addresses, you will be getting millions of domain names. And when you will be having millions of domain names, that simply means that you are having a lot of raw data. Then you can match those domain names, whether they are in any VDP or responsible disclosure program, and if they are, then you can proceed further with your further recon process. And how can I say that? You can proceed further with your reconnaissance techniques, and you can even run scanners such as Nuclei or Giles scanner. So after that you will be getting good hits of assets that are not discovered previously, and this whole process you have to iterate, maybe every 15 days, maybe after every month, or maybe after every week. And if you will do this, you will be getting a lot of hits. What I do is I automate this process. I don't have to manually feed my ranges or feed my IP addresses to my programs. It is done automatically, and I am getting Slack notification on my channel whenever a new domain pops up or whenever I'm finding something new, right? And yeah, I think we covered enough of this. Now let's move forward. I have already shown you finding IP addresses or CIDRs of these cloud providers, port scanning, but carefully for port 443 and port 80. Then reference is this talk. So this talk is very interesting. You should check this out. It is by Nahamsek and Static Flow. It is about identifying assets in the cloud. So yeah, it is a recommended one. So go check this out. And yeah, that's it. We are about to wrap this talk. And if you got any questions or queries, you can reach to my Twitter. I'll be more than happy to help you out. And yeah, have a wonderful day ahead. And yeah, maybe one day we'll meet somewhere, some city, crossing streets.
Welcome to Cyber Mayhem. The match will begin in 3, 2, 1. Flags have been planted. Your team has owned a user flag. Your team has cloned a machine. Warning, your team is losing availability points. May your experience lead you to victory.
Are you looking to take the next step in your cybersecurity career or open the door to cybersecurity from other areas in IT? Security Plus is the leading global certification that proves you have the core cybersecurity skills to advance your career. Nearly 600,000 IT pros have earned CompTIA Security Plus. Once you have Security Plus, the #1 core cybersecurity certification on the market, you can problem solve a wider variety of today's complex security issues. Prepare yourself with hands-on coverage of the latest trends and techniques. You'll learn the 5 areas of security, including attacks, threats, and vulnerabilities, architecture and design, implementation, operations and incident response, and GRC. Security Plus has become the gold standard for corporations and governments worldwide. For years, it has been the primary choice for fulfilling U.S. Department of Defense 8140-8570 compliance. Security Plus has demonstrated its ability to make sure you have the right foundation for your cyber career. Because Security Plus has helped organizations for years, it's no wonder that more and more people in various job roles are turning to Security Plus to enrich their security skill set. Study with the official CompTIA content exclusively developed for Security Plus and hit the ground running with the best cybersecurity certification on the market. Prepare yourself to address today's threats as well as anticipate the next attack. Head on over to comptia.org/security to learn more and secure your future.
So much, sir. It was an incredible talk. Moving on to the next highlight of the day, I would like to introduce John Hammond, who will be speaking on advanced tips and tricks for Capture the Flag.
Hello everyone, and thank you so much for tuning into this talk. I am super excited to be here with you all at VULNCON, at least digitally. I'm a little bummed that I can't be here with you all in person right now, but hey, hopefully sometime soon in the future. Anyway, I am really flattered and really pleased to be able to bring this to you. This is a talk titled Advanced Tips and Tricks for Capture the Flag. And this is with me, John Hammond. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in. I'm going to try and break this down as simple as I can here. So we're going to get into some kind of fun mental exercises, I hope, and hopefully I can introduce to you that in a fun way. So let's get this bare bone basics, easy idea first out of the way. Let's say there's you as one being, one person, one human individual out in the world, and you want to try and improve your security skills. You want to get better at cybersecurity. You're interested in hacking. You want to be on the keyboard, being an operator, doing the really cool and doing the fun stuff. So how do you go about doing that, though? That's super hard. And I've kind of talked about this, and if you know me, you know that I sing the praises of it and shout from the rooftops the real value in playing Capture the Flag. I think that's the best way to learn and get your hands on with real cybersecurity tasks and problems to solve and new challenges to uncover and face, and you can improve your skills by doing that. So let's define you a little bit more and kind of who you are, what you can do, and what actions you might be able to take to get better. Here's an idea. Here's you kind of defined as a class. And you can see that I'm very clearly kind of distilling this down into the bare bone basics. Let's just say you exist with a certain property such as your skill level. And right as you get started, right when you're taking on this challenge, you're going on this adventure to learn more and sharpen your skills, you're going to try and start off with the skill level starting at 0. Now, just like, in a video game, just like we're trying to level up what we can do and who we are and everything that we can accomplish, we want to improve that skill level. So how can we do that? Well, let's build out another function or another capability. And let's say that you can play Capture the Flag or play CTF. And now that will increase your skill level. We're just going to add 1 to that number 0 up here. So your skill level increases. Now, obviously, that is super duper distilled down. I'm sure a ton of you know that it doesn't work all the time that way. maybe when you're first getting started, everything that you play, everything that you interact with and you gain exposure to, maybe you'll be learning and you're it's like the fire hose is facing you, right? Everything that you're going to learn comes from the capture the flag that you play. But obviously, in the real world, there are a lot more variables at play. There are a lot of other dependent circumstances or a lot of other potential factors in how you increase your skill level, how you get better at what you do. So let's fill this out a little bit, right? But first, bear with that initial idea that you exist and your skill level after you play a CTF will increase. And when you're just getting started out, that's awesome. That's all that you want to do. You want to keep increasing your skill level. So you'll play a CTF over and over and over again. Let's say, okay, let's just loop this real quick. Let's play about 10 different capture the flag events, all these different exercises, and now at the end of the day, after you've played so many CTF events, your skill level has gone up. Now you're not sitting at 0 anymore. Maybe you're all the way up to 11. And you could extrapolate this idea as much as you want, right? But we know that this whole thought, this whole idea isn't exactly fleshed out just yet. There are dependencies and other variables at play that we aren't considering. So that's the beginning thought, right, though. At the very, very start of the game, of the world, at the beginning of your adventure, you're going to play capture the flag so you can keep amping up your skill level, and you'll get better, and you'll learn. At the end of the day, though, you're having fun. You're enjoying yourself. You love the fact that you can play CTFs, and you can level up your skills. You can get better. Next, you want to tackle some harder capture the flag games and exercises. You want to play some advanced or more difficult CTFs. So let's kind of switch up our functionality here. Let's go back to this you idea and let's change up our play CTF functionality here. And let's say that we could supply a difficulty or how difficult the CTF that you might play actually is. Now your skill level will increase by the difficulty. And again, you know, okay, that might not be completely realistic, right? Again, there are a lot of other variables and factors at play. I'm just trying to distill this down. I'm just trying to get this thought across. Because if you were to play difficult CTFs and hard CTFs, let's say you're super excited about this. Let's say that you want to go tackle and you want to go play the hardest CTF that you can. Let's go and play a CTF with this humongous difficulty. It's super duper hard. We could try it. We could go play that CTF with some large, ginormous difficulty value. Except, oh, that's not going to work. That's going to be super duper hard, right? You're going to be banging your head against the wall and maybe you can't solve anything. Maybe you can't accomplish any of those tasks. You can't beat any of those challenges. And it really drags you down, right? Like that's tough. That's way over your head. That difficulty, that was too hard and we sort of got an overflow, an information overload, and we just couldn't handle it. We couldn't play that CTF. So we weren't able to increase our skill level. We weren't able to get better. It was just a slap in the face. Well, how can we avoid this, right? We need to know that some difficult CTFs are way too hard and we can't tackle them on our own, or at least not yet, not at the moment. But how are we going to increase our difficulty? How are we going to get better? Let's keep expanding on this, right? Let's change up our play CTF idea and the functionality here. So if we were to supply a difficulty, if we were to play maybe a more difficult CTF, here's the thought. If the difficulty is more or greater than our current skill level, well, then it won't work. We'll get an error and be like, hey, this CTF is just too hard. We can't get better at it. It's too difficult for us. That's the idea. That could at least protect us or stop us from really beating ourselves up when we just fail or can't solve anything in a capture the flag game or exercise. So now we go back out into the world, we take a look at our skill level, we see where we are, we kind of take inventory on everything that we know and we've learned about, and we go play another capture the flag event. But when we look back at ourselves and we take a look at our skill level, we see that we haven't really improved. Our skill level hasn't gone up. And you say, what the heck? Why isn't this working? When I was playing Capture the Flag earlier, I was improving. My skill level was increasing. So you play another CTF and you play another CTF and you play more Capture the Flag and you still aren't seeing your skill level increase. You keep playing Capture the Flag, but nothing is happening. You've plateaued because we didn't play a more difficult CTF. We just sort of plateaued. And I'm sure a lot of you know that feeling where, okay, you play one Capture the Flag, but all this, or at least a lot of it, is already still within your knowledge realm, and you haven't picked up or learned anything new. It's not stretching you or pulling you out of your comfort zone, so you aren't growing. You aren't improving. You aren't bettering yourself and increasing your skill level, right? So our idea, or at least its current implementation right now, still isn't right. It still isn't accurate. We know we're going to bump into the wall if we play a Capture the Flag game that's too difficult, way too hard, but if we don't increase our skill level, if all we do is we play easy games or kind of simple, bare-bone basics, beginner Capture the Flag events, we aren't going to improve. So how do we find this middle ground, right? Let's expand on our idea. Now let's look at how we can kind of abstract this idea of playing a CTF. Now we supply a difficulty or what we might be up against, and we also add a new kind of variable at play here where we kind of consider how we're going to end up playing this Capture the Flag. Maybe we'll supply the way or the manner that we go about it. Are we going to play like a pro player? Are we going to play like a beginner? Are we going to play like someone who's never seen a Capture the Flag game before? Now we still have our original difficulty check. If the difficulty is above our skill level, then we'll still get this error or we'll hurt, right? It won't work. This CTF will be too hard and we won't be able to play. But there's a new condition here at play. If, depending on how we play the game, then we could still increase our skill level. If we were to play this game in a smarter way, we could still grow and learn and improve our skill level depending on the difficulty of the Capture the Flag game. Now, sure, it might be at a different threshold. We're not going to be increasing linearly by 1 every single time. Now it's dependent on the difficulty, and maybe we'll only get just a small factor, just a small portion of what we would have gained otherwise. But we're still stretching ourselves. We're still learning, and we're playing more difficult Capture the Flag challenges. But there's still a problem. We look at ourselves, we look at our skill level, we see we still haven't improved, we're at that same value, and we try to go play another Capture the Flag event that's a little bit more difficult or has a greater difficulty than our current skill level. And again, we see our big scary error message where this doesn't work. This CTF is just too hard. We didn't specify how we're going to play that Capture the Flag. We didn't want to come across and act like a pro player. We didn't want to get into some better techniques. So let's expand on this even more. Now we look at ourselves, we're still at our 11 value skill level, and we go play a Capture the Flag event with a greater difficulty, that difficulty of 12 once again, but now how we play is different. We're going to supply that how argument and add that parameter, add that into the mix, and we're going to play like an advanced player. That's an idea. That's a thought. Now we should be able to at least somewhat improve our skill level, right? Well, does anyone notice anything that might potentially be wrong here? You guys are going to hate me for this. You guys, this is going to be a bummer, right? Check it out. Ooh. Our advanced playstyle is undefined. It's not going to work. It errors once again. So I want to get this idea across, right? And again, this is a bummer, right? This is the call to action that we don't want to hear, but we have to. There is no such thing as playing with advanced tips and tricks. You can't be advanced when you play a Capture the Flag. It doesn't exist. And it's so weird, right? I think that this boils down to one idea. This boils down to the same bare bone basics that you play Capture the Flag. When you play a Capture the Flag and you think there's some good practices or they're the basics that we could do, we could prepare for a Capture the Flag event. We could practice and keep getting better, and we can pile up. And I'll expand on each of those ideas or each of those different pedestals that we could stand on to help make us better. But we want to address that as the basics. So here's the thought. Playing like an advanced player or using some advanced Capture the Flag techniques, all that really is just doing more of the basics, hyper-focusing on the stuff that you should do every single time you get ready for a Capture the Flag event, and just amping that up even more and more and more. It's basics times 2, times 3, times 4, times 5. You just keep doing the basics and you keep doing them better and you improve your process. You prepare, you practice, and you keep piling up everything that you're learning every time you go through a game. That's the idea. It boils down to the advanced, all that advanced play style is, that's just taking the basics and doing them more and more and more. The advanced, being an advanced player depends on how you do the basics. So let's zoom in on this, right? Let's say, again, there's you, that individual, our player, right? And you can prepare. That's a new function or some new action, some new verb that we can do with any specific sort of resource. And if you prepare, no matter what you do, how you do it, as long as you prepare, you are still increasing your skill level. You're still getting yourself ready for an upcoming game or a new Capture the Flag event that you really want to take seriously. You really want to play and you want to hard charge against that game. If you prepare, you'll be ready and your skill level will go up just simply by doing it, by going through the act of preparing. Now, there's one example idea here, right? How do you prepare? Of course, go ahead and read write-ups. A great example of this is over at ctftime.org, where you, of course, would sign up and learn and know all about these upcoming games. But over in their write-up section, you can learn and read about other Capture the Flag events. What challenges were present? What tasks were there? What problems did the players have to solve? So you could read those write-ups, and while you play Capture the Flag, or even while you're reading these write-ups, you could try and recreate that challenge. You could write your own write-ups. And that's the best way to learn, right? You want to try and document and know your solutions. Maybe you could write a blog post. You could share an article. You could put it out on the internet. You could put it on Medium. You could put it on LinkedIn. You could put it on your GitHub. It doesn't matter. Anywhere, as long as you do it, as long as you are reading write-ups to learn about other problems and new tools and new vulnerabilities and attacks and exploits, that helps you grow. That increases your skill level. If you write write-ups, even better. Your skill level might increase even more than that. We'll have to add that into our little functionality here. If you share the knowledge, if you keep spreading the wealth for everything that you're learning, whether or not it be in a blog post or whether or not it be in a video format, you just want to share your screen and maybe add commentary over what you're doing and how you're doing it, explaining it to the people that play, to the people that are watching or reading this write-up so that they can recreate it and they learn the same gems that you learned. You are increasing your skill level. You're getting better. When you prepare for other Capture the Flag events and exercises you might play in the future, by even just going back and looking at other CTFs, you get better. And that's part of being an advanced player or using the advanced tips and tricks for Capture the Flag. Here's another thought, right? How else can you prepare other than write-ups and other than solutions and sharing? You want to know your tools. You want to know what is in your arsenal and how it works and what can be used for what, because those are ultimately what you're going to go to the battlefield with, right? What are the flags to Nmap, or what do you need with Hydra, or what can you do with the PyCryptoDome library to solve these things, or how can you take advantage of these format string vulnerabilities in a printf function call in a C program, etc., etc. You want to know what your tools can do and how you can use them and maximize their potential. And then once those tools don't work for you, or if you know that you're going to be in a new environment, if maybe this is a repeat game or it's a special flare where they've discussed what is going to be pertinent in that capture the flag competition, build your own tools. Prepare your own toolkit so you can come to the fight. If you know it's going to be some red team versus blue team, maybe attack and defense game, well, try and get some exploit scripts ready, or at the very least, just templates that you could use and patch in, load up any of the specific syntax you might need in the moment. So build your own tools along with knowing the tools that you have. I think taking the time to prepare and get ready scripts, functions, programs, command and control beacons, whatever it is, whatever you think is necessary, taking the time preemptively before the game, ahead of time, to build your own tools, that is another part of being an advanced player or having stuff ready for war. Some of you might have seen a recent video out from Live Overflow, right, where he was showing raw footage from his Capture the Flag team playing the Google CTF finals this year. And it's like how hacking actually looks. And if you were to take a look at this video and note it's a 2.5 hour timeline, but it's this whole time lapse of them preparing, playing, getting ready for the game. And if you'll notice, Live Overflow talks about how his team members and everyone had spent 50 to 70 hours just preparing, building tools, getting ready to come with an arsenal, a whole framework so that they can collaborate, so that they can share what they're doing, so that they can fine-tune and debug what might be happening in WebSockets or proxies or other techniques that might be necessary. They prepared by building their own tools. And I want to drive that home. That is how you can be advanced. And of course, we got to practice, right? Preparing is one thing, but we still have to practice like we play, right? You have to train. You have to keep sharpening that skill and getting the skill level better. Even if it's not an active online weekend capture the flag competition, but if you take one online resource, maybe a war game or anything specific, and you practice with that, again, your skill level will increase. You will get better. Sure, this is abstracted away. There are, of course, other variables and factors and dependencies at play, but let me get this straight. Simply doing it, trying, putting in the effort, that will help. That helps you grow. So, what do you practice with? What are those resources you can actually use to practice? Well, there is a long, long list. And I've shared this before, right? Over the Wire, I think, puts out incredible stuff to get smart and up to speed on the Linux command line. Then you can get into even more binary exploitation stuff. You can do stack smashing. And of course, Smash the Stack will showcase a lot of that. Exploit.education, you get to do more of the binary engineering, binary exploitation. Try Hack Me and Hack the Box. They're fantastic for red teaming, penetration testing stuff. And of course, a little bit of blue team, a little bit of defensive alongside all the offensive. And cryptography, right? There's the Matisano Crypto Challengers. There's cryptohack.org, all in this flair and flavor of capture the flag or gamified security education. These things all help you learn just by practicing, exploring, and tinkering with all of these. And this list goes on and on and on. There's stuff specific to web. There's stuff specific to reverse engineering or any other realm here. Mobile applications, steganography, more and more. The list goes on, and there's even more. This is not completely comprehensive. And here's the next thought. Here's the third piece of the pie, or the three pieces, the three P's, right? Practice, prepare, pile up. Pile up. That will still help you grow. Pile up resources, and that adds just a little bit to your skill level because you're building out your repertoire, your archive. Everything that you might have seen when you write write-ups, when you discover a new tool, when you understand a new technique or read through some new programming paradigms, whatever the case may be, pile up all that information and save it for yourself so that you can use later in the future. So what do I mean by that, right? Take notes, write things down, save your solutions. Even if you don't end up writing a write-up, you still want to have the breadcrumbs, the pieces, some of the syntax that you might have used that gets complex and long and maybe you forget it in the future. And along with that, keep a library. Keep track of all of the tools that you use and what purpose you might have used them for. Are you looking at some web challenge? Are you looking at a mobile challenge? Well, what are you going to end up using right away? You could build out your own sort of checklist or your own cheat sheet of all the things that you might think of and help you remember if you don't think of them in the future. Having that whole reference, being able to pile up all that information, that is what's going to help you. That is what keeps you growing and what makes you more of an advanced player using the advanced tips and tricks. And personally, I think that is the sweet spot. I think those are the secret ingredients to help make you better, to help you grow. So as long as you exist, right? As long as you want to keep playing Capture the Flag and growing and learning while you are in the world, right? I think you should practice. I think you should prepare. I think you should pile up all that information. And I think you should play Capture the Flag. Put it all to the test. Now, you could put whatever difficulty you want in here. You could play a hard CTF. You could play a beginner CTF. You could do whatever you'd like. But this loop right here, right? This iterative process, that is what is going to keep you growing. If you practice, prepare, pile up, and it doesn't matter what order these are in, right? You could move this up and down and left and right as long as you do it with whatever resource that you find most comfortable, with however way you do it, GitHub, blog posts, videos, try Hack Me, Hack the Box, etc., etc., etc. As long as you practice, prepare, and pile up, when you go to play a CTF, you're going to be playing like an advanced player. And that's the way to do it. Once you do this enough, you can take on whatever CTF you might like. You could take on that super hard, insane, incredible, difficult Capture the Flag that you wanted to play. You get to choose. It is entirely up to your own input. And how you're going to play? Well, you're going to play like an advanced player. Because you took the basics, you took the bare bone essentials, what you should do when you're playing smart, when you want to get better, and you just kept doing it over and over and over again. You loop it. Prepare, practice, pile up. And when you play like a winner and an advanced player. Okay, well, hey, that is all I've got for you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I know, hey, maybe this was a letdown. Maybe this was a bummer. Maybe you were looking for the secrets. You were looking for the one-stop shop to make you an advanced player, an advanced Capture the Flag hacker or red teamer or penetration tester. And no, there is no shortcut. It's just putting in the work. It's playing and preparing and gathering all of that information, stockpiling everything you learn so that you can use it again in the future and you keep getting better. You keep increasing your skill level. But hey, if you guys have any questions for me, don't be a stranger. I am more than happy to chat. Go ahead and reach out. You can find me. There's my email up there, johnhammond010@gmail.com. Of course, I have a pretty cheesy YouTube channel where I showcase a lot of Capture the Flag video write-ups and a lot of security events and war games and conferences and talks and other fun stuff. So I hope you could please go check out that YouTube channel. I am, of course, on Twitter. There's my GitHub. There's LinkedIn. I am by no means a hermit. So if you wanted to cyber stalk me, you can definitely track me down. But thank you so much for tuning in and listening to this talk, everyone. I hope you got at least a little gem, some nuggets out of this. I know it wasn't some earth-shattering thing on how to be an advanced player, but it boils down to the basics. It boils down to what we know we should always be doing, but sometimes we just let it slip by. You keep on the grind. You keep playing. You keep practicing, and you grow. That's how you do it. Thank you so much, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the rest of VULNCON, and I will see you. It sounds so funny. It's like a YouTube video outro, right? I'll see you next time.
Welcome to Cyber Mayhem. The match will begin in 3, 2, 1. Flags have been planted. Your team has owned a user flag. Your team has cloned a machine. Warning, your team is losing availability points. May your experience lead you to victory.
Are you looking to take the next step in your cybersecurity career or open the door to cybersecurity from other areas in IT? Security Plus is the leading global certification that proves you have the core cybersecurity skills to advance your career. Nearly 600,000 IT pros have earned CompTIA Security Plus. Once you have Security Plus, the #1 core cybersecurity certification on the market, you can problem solve a wider variety of today's complex security issues. Prepare yourself with hands-on coverage of the latest trends and techniques. You'll learn the 5 areas of security, including attacks, threats, and vulnerabilities, architecture and design, implementation, operations and incident response, and GRC. Security Plus has become the gold standard for corporations and governments worldwide. For years, it has been the primary choice for fulfilling U.S. Department of Defense 8140-8570 compliance. Security Plus has demonstrated its ability to make sure you have the right foundation for your cyber career. Because Security Plus has helped organizations for years, it's no wonder that more and more people in various job roles are turning to Security Plus to enrich their security skill set. Study with the official CompTIA content exclusively developed for Security Plus and hit the ground running with the best cybersecurity certification on the market. Prepare yourself to address today's threats as well as anticipate the next attack. Head on over to comptia.org/security to learn more and secure your future.
all are enjoying. Next on the list is Nipun Jaiswal, who will enlighten you all with the talk on the art of vulnerability research and exploitation.
Hi everybody, welcome to VULNCON 2020. This is me, Nipun Jaiswal. I hope you guys are doing great. My topic for the discussion is Introduction to Vulnerability Research on Windows platform. And during this short and sweet 30 minutes of session, I would be explaining that what is basically the correct way of doing vulnerability research that is purely according to me and which I have been doing for the last almost 10 years now. So this is me, Nipun Jaiswal. I'm the Director of Cybersecurity Practice at BDO. Who am I? I'm the author of 11 cybersecurity books, primarily on Metasploit. One of my best-selling books is Mastering Metasploit, along with Hands-on Network Forensics. I've also written 3 Chinese and 8 English books, so in total 11 books. Yes. I've represented India at BRICS Future Skills Competition, which was held in Johannesburg, South Africa, in 2018. I also have around 20 plus security Hall of Fames that includes offensive security and Rapid 7. I've been leading the technical security assessment divisions at BDO India and also handling SOC operations, pan India. So, having said that, you have got to know me, you can feel free to contact me anywhere on the profiles which you can see on your screen. Talking about vulnerability research, see, I would not go into very basic details about vulnerability research and buffer overflows or exploitation, but I would restrict myself onto specifically on the Windows platform and for the Windows applications, which means we are not talking about the third-party applications like anything like Winamp or VLC player or something like that. But we are more focused on 2 applications which are made by Microsoft itself, and they are part of the Windows platform. So basically, there are 2 things to keep in your mind when you are starting on this wonderful road in front of you, that is vulnerability research. There is 2 types of vulnerability research, I would say. The first one is primarily onto the user land, where we focus more onto the application side of things, while the other one is the the vulnerability research over the kernel. Both have pros and cons. What I think is that we should always start first from the user land part and then move on to the kernel one. So as you can see, the kernel is the centerpiece of the entire Windows, like it is for the other operating systems as well. So in this particular discussion of ours, we'll be restricting ourselves onto the user land part, but I will also be giving you the pointers that how you can start on the kernel side. So, like I said, third-party application exploitation is not equal to Windows exploitation. As you can see on the screen, it's a screenshot taken from XploitDB, where out of all those exploits, only the one which has a tick mark which says Microsoft Windows 32K escalation of privilege is the one that is an actual Windows exploit. Other ones are the third-party ones. Moving on, if you would ask me that, what do we need to do in order to systematically learn and master Windows exploitation, you will basically need the knowledge of debuggers, especially debuggers like WinDebugger and other debuggers, I would say. This is basically to look into the data in motion. So let's say when an application is executing, what values are changing in the particular set of registers or in the memory, we need to know that. Hence, we will require debuggers. We will need disassemblers, so we can actually translate the binary code into the assembly language and can make some sense out of it. Then we would require the compilers, which are already part of modern disassemblers such as IDA Pro as well as Radar. So which will actually give you a pseudocode of the assembly code itself hence making it much more readable and will make more sense of the code itself. Then we would require the knowledge of the basics of Windows API. So because exploitation on Windows would definitely be more related to the different functions which are there in the Windows DLL files. Hence, the introduction or the basics of Windows API are must. I would suggest people who already have backgrounds in C, C++ to take up Windows API programming or Win API programming. That would make much more sense. Then the basics of Windows internals, that how do you find particular set of objects, how do you see what number of different TCP accounts, TCP connections are open, and what basic file operations are being performed. People having background in malware analysis will have those already, but if you would like to look into those, I would suggest you look at the sys internals toolkit. That would make much more sense. Finally, the familiarity with reverse engineering is definitely a must. You need to basically read the assembly code, make sense out of it, that how the stuff is working, how do you track down various different functions, what are the imports, what are the exports of a particular DLL file or an executable. You need to know that. And the most importantly, which a lot of people miss out, is the fuzzing. Why? Because see, what I have seen over the last 10 years is there are a lot of people who actually know that how buffer overflow works, but they kind of struggle when it comes to other kind of vulnerabilities, especially related to heap or use after free vulnerabilities. Henceforth, I would suggest that you should understand the proper process, that how do we figure out these vulnerabilities, what is the actual process of finding a particular vulnerability in a software based solution or an operating system itself. So yes, fuzzing is very much required. We'll look into it, that what exactly I'm talking about. Now, how do you find a vulnerability on a Windows platform? There are many different ways. You can sometimes, it can be a pure luck. You find a vulnerability and that's it. Analyzing somebody else's vulnerability, and then you find a particular vulnerability. That is one way of doing it. But the proper methods are, it is continuous fuzzing, where you make use of different set of fuzzers, the intelligent ones, the dumb ones, and it's a continuous process. It will give you 1,000 number of crashes of the particular application. Now, for those folks who doesn't know what fuzzing is, it is providing random set of data to the application and look out for different behavioral changes that the application exhibits. So now there are so many tools in the market, and when we make use of them, fuzzing has gone from a very dumb stage to a much more now there are feedback based fuzzers, intelligent fuzzers, which will actually browse through to a particular branch of code based on the best possible methods. So yes, fuzzing can be one way of finding vulnerability. It may find you a 0-day as well. Patch diffing is the second one, which will give you the 1-day vulnerabilities. So what happens is, every month on the second Tuesday, Microsoft releases patches for its operating systems. It's called the Patch Tuesday. So what happens is, once the patch arrives, the Windows update arrives, people like me, people like different technical exploit development engineers or vulnerability researchers, they download that update from the catalog websites of Microsoft, and then they reverse it, find what components are being patched. If there are some particular vulnerabilities which are getting patched, they will try to look at those particular DLL files or those particular EXEs, that what code has changed from the previous version of that very same file in the Windows platform. So they basically match both these files and look after the changes which has occurred. They do that in order to figure out where the patch has been applied to identify what a vulnerability could have been. So once we identify that out, we try to replicate that particular issue by reaching that particular branch of code. So let's say if I know that particular code is not being triggered, what would be those conditions that I can create to reach that particular branch of code in the existing systems which are not yet patched? Henceforth, this gives rise to a one-day vulnerability. The third one, like I already mentioned, it is analyzing the recently found vulnerabilities. And similarly, now this goes hand in hand with patch diffing as well, where you are analyzing some other code and you find a separate branch where the similar vulnerability has also existed, and then it gives you a complete 0 day in itself. The fourth one is the low hanging fruit, which is the logical privilege escalation. It is more onto finding different processes, what they are trying to access different objects with different privileges, and once you figure that out, you just create some filters in procmon and figure out what could go wrong, if a particular file has been deleted from a particular place, or if a particular file is being created, can you symlink into it into a more privileged directory. So that is a low hanging fruit. There are many vulnerabilities being discovered in that particular region, but yeah, these are the primarily 4 different methods that you can use to identify vulnerabilities in Windows. Talking about the fuzzing part. Now, when it comes to fuzzing, there are basically 2 fuzzers which are completely my choice of fuzzers. The first one is the WinAFL, which is a guided fuzzer. I would suggest that its learning curve is a bit steep, so you focus on Peach fuzzer if you are just starting out. Peach fuzzer is more onto kind of, it is also a feedback based fuzzer, but yes, you can actually view a lot of things in Peach fuzzer. Like there is a GUI as well for the people who are just starting out. So the learning curve is not that steep. Once you are done with it, then you can move on to the AFL, which would require you to create some harnesses around the function under test, and familiarity with C and C++ is must in order to operate with AFL. We'll talk about it later. Then moving on to the other method, which was patch diffing. So we can primarily use 2 different tools. The first one is bindiff and the other one is Dafora. Both of the tools, the bindiff, you will load the patched file as well as the unpatched file, whether be it's a DLL or an executable, both into bindiff, and finally you will figure out the differences between both of them and try to figure out where exactly the code has changed, which mentions the vulnerability. It is not that straightforward as it looks, because there are thousands of changes in the code, and jolting down to that one single change that has patched a particular vulnerability is a challenge in itself to find out, right? Moving on, like I mentioned, local privilege escalation, you would require sysinternals toolkit, tools like procmon and TCPview. So what we will do here is we will look at primarily the fuzzing piece as well as the patch diffing piece, so where you can basically start your vulnerability research journey. So let us look at a case study demonstrating MS08067, which is one of the most popular vulnerability exploited on Microsoft Windows, especially on Windows XP Service Pack 2. I know it's a very old vulnerability, but since we are trying to learn how the vulnerability process looks like, we'll take the best example where I started my career on. So it was one of the very first vulnerabilities I exploited while I was starting my cybersecurity career. And let's consider that we do not have any knowledge of this vulnerability. So how would the initial process from a point of an a researcher would have been. What could be those possible steps he would have taken to identify this particular vulnerability? See, the whole point is that we need to know that how the vulnerability research process looked like. So, especially, let's say if I would have been the guy who was the original founder of the vulnerability, what steps would I have taken to identify this issue? I must have been researching on or fuzzing on the SMB protocol, or especially the DCERPC, which is Distributed Computing Environment and Remote Procedure Call on Windows. Reading through various documentations and the the RFCs. So I must have introduced some changes into the RPC packet based on the fuzzing and the results I've got from fuzzing, and that could have caused a crash either in the application or the OS itself. Because it's a protocol level vulnerability, there would be very high chances that the crash might have taken place on the OS. Now, from building on that crash, I must have checked that if it is reproducible, because there are, let's say, if you find 1,000 bugs which can create a crash, there are not many that are actually reproducible. So if it is reproducible, the next thing I would have done is to identify if there are any exploit mitigations in place. So how basically I make use of that crash to alter its state into running my shell code instead. So I would have checked if DEP, which is data execution prevention, which doesn't allow data on the stack to be executed by the application, or ASLR, which is address space layout randomization, which is every single time a particular program is loaded, it gets loaded to a separate memory region altogether, hence making it much difficult to exploit a particular vulnerability, because you cannot use hard-coded addresses, right? So I would have checked if those two things are in place. In case they are, I would have tried bypassing them, maybe an information leak, or could have tried something else. But all in all, if there are any mitigations, I would try to bypass them. If they are bypassable, then I will build on the POC exploit. So this is how the process looks like when I'm trying to build on a vulnerability which I have just found, right? So let's see, what all things might be helpful in the case of this particular vulnerability, which according to us is unknown to us in this particular case, right? So if we look at, there are few very good examples on how we can actually, find relevant information related to this vulnerability. There is a paper from StratSec that says fuzzing the SMB case. So since we are researching on the SMB for the first example, we need to know how SMB works, what are the different phases of negotiation, how the data is sent from one place to the other. So it says that the SMB starts by sending a negotiate protocol request, then it receives a response, then there is a session setup, and there is an X request, then there is a session setup and X answer, then there is a tree connect, so on and so forth. But looking at the internals of this particular packet, SMB packet is composed of three paths, which is NBT length, SMB header, SMB command, so on and so forth. But you can see. But the good thing here is that every single time an SMB function is used, it uses its own parameters. So in those particular I would say fields, there could be a chance where you can easily find something that will actually allow a particular crash to happen, right? So we'll see, let's say if we see Wireshark, you can see that in this particular request responses, it is exactly what is what is mentioned in the PPT by StratSec. It's a negotiate protocol request that followed by a response, followed by a session setup X request and responses and multiple things others. But what you can see is there are some specific different characters that are being used, and there are some point failures as well, such as there's a status log on failure, so on and so forth. Henceforth, because this is from this packet capture is from an actual exploit, may not make that much sense out of it, but we'll breeze through it once we know how the SMB works. So the key message here is that we need to understand what particular protocol we are working on, how the internals, the packet structures looks like. I would be researching its RFCs, where different header values or different fields and what bytes, what is basically the size of those fields are, to make a concrete small fuzzer that can actually help me fuzz this particular protocol in a much better way. So in the next case study, we will look at a vulnerability which is CV 2012-0003. This is also a Microsoft vulnerability, and it occurs in one of the DLL files. According to Mitre, it is an unspecified vulnerability, but we'll look into it, right? So the reason of this transition from a protocol level vulnerability onto a file format one is that we need to understand that the process is almost similar for file formats as well. So in this case, we will be researching or fuzzing on file formats rather than a protocol, and rest of the process is almost similar to what we have done previously for the Net API vulnerability. We will go through the different documentations and the RFCs for different file formats, such as docx, mp3, wave, and whatnot. But in this particular case, for this particular vulnerability, we would be researching on the MIDI file format, which is supported by the Microsoft Windows Media Player. Now what happens in this case is that a MIDI file, if it is malformed, it gets parsed by the Windows Media Player, and thus something which is present in that media file is not parsed well enough by the Windows Media Player, and hence it crashes. Now that crash has to be converted into an exploitable vulnerability, like we have discussed earlier as well. But in this case, we will also be looking at the entire exploitation curve of this particular vulnerability, and we will because there is already a module present in Metasploit for this particular bug, we will start exploiting the target, but we will also be debugging the Windows Media Player on a Windows based operating system. We will look at how different calls are made and what actually caused this vulnerability to get exploited. We will see it in form of a demonstration, and after this particular demonstration we will look at how patch diffing works as well. Hey guys, welcome to the demonstration of CV 2012-0003, and in this demonstration we'll see how actually this vulnerability was exploited. So we'll quickly set up the exploit in Metasploit, and then we'll look into the internals of the vulnerability, right? So first let me set the required options. So we put as 8080, URL path is let's set payload to Windows Meta Preta Reverse TCP, and we show options, set as a host, and yeah, we are pretty much up and running with this. Okay, so as soon as somebody visits this particular URL, he gets infected, and I can see there are sessions begin to come already, right? Anyways, so what we'll do is we have set up Windows Internet Explorer. We are currently debugging it under IDA. So I have set all the breakpoints which were required, and what we'll look at is simply just running this, and we can see that the breakpoint has hit, and here is a call which is being made to the winalloc function, winmmalloc in fact, which allocates a buffer. And okay, let's go ahead. So this is where the buffer gets allocated. We can see that the EAX, yes, this is our buffer, right? Okay, so what happens now is we quickly move on next, and we can see there is a push call of 400, which denotes 400 bytes. You can see here. Then there is another call to the second function, to a second buffer which is being allocated, and this is where the second buffer is, so we'll synchronize with that. And yeah, here it is, and we can see the buffer space, right? So now moving on, what really happens behind the scene of this vulnerability is, let's say what we can see is that let's say we quickly go to the edit function. We can easily see this module functioning internally. What happens is the exploitation is being done by supplying a specially crafted MIDI file. Now MIDI files have two different kind of chunks. The one is the MTHD, the other one is the MTRK. So no problems with the MTHD part, but with the MTRK, it is actually responsible for reading different type of events from the MIDI file, and on parsing a particular value in one of those events causes these allocated buffers to change their allocation size. So we can either increase or decrease in the particular allocated buffer, and that is where the heap overflow really resides. So this was it about it, and let's see how we can go ahead and check the internals of this particular vulnerability. I'll play next, and what we can see is we are into quartz.dll file, and something is happening here. No problems with that. So here, coming back to the WinMM.dll file, which is the culprit file here, this is where actually the events are being read into the ECX register. So let's say the current value of the events which are there plus EVX goes directly into the ECX. So what happens is, now what we can see is, now these are the events. So an event is like like here we have a value called C928. So C9 would be the first event, the 28 would be the second event, and if there is a third byte set, that would be the third event, right? So this is how it is. And moving on, what we can see is the ECX contains all the values, which is E1, E2 and E3, which is nothing but 28C9 here. So on a particular condition, we are able to trigger a certain branch of code that can actually help us to increase or either decrease a byte on the allocated buffer, and that is where the vulnerability is. So let's say if these are the events which are being read from the file, so we do control that events because we can edit the MIDI file, right? And if we supply a specially crafted value here, this will actually allow us to take a completely different branch of the code, which we can use to trigger the vulnerability. So let's go ahead and see where next we move ahead. Now here we have C9, right? So C9 is currently being moved to AL. Now we can see that first event is loaded into the EAX, right? So this is basically the condition which requires E1's value must be greater than ETH and should be lesser than FF, which is nothing but 255, right? So moving ahead, what we can see is for this particular event, we come here, the DL is being moved on to the E2 event is being moved on to DL, and we can see it here, that's 28. We go ahead, press next, and now here E3 is being moved on to BL, which is again 0. So what we'll see is now for this particular event nothing happens, right? And now see, we can see a jump if not 0. And what happens now is that we move again to read the next particular event. So this goes on and on and on until and unless we find a value that satisfies the condition, right? So what we can see now is we have B9 as E1, which is again something that doesn't really interest us. So we'll continue this because a MIDI file can be large enough to hold a lot of different events, and we'll stop at a particular condition where it will actually satisfy the requirement. So moving on, hunting down the right values, are we? Okay. So right now what we can see is we have a very interesting value called 99, right? And let's see if this triggers something. So 99 7F is the E2, and those values are being currently moved. Now yes, this particular value satisfies the situation, so we are here now, and the value is currently being compared. Now after doing an AND operation, the value becomes 90. Now 90 is being compared to this, and definitely since both of these values match, jump is being taken, right? So yeah, and now E2 is being moved on to the EDX, which is nothing but 23. And from here what we can see is some sort of calculation which is going on, and which will actually produce a new EAX value. So the new EAX value comes out to be 251, and this is where the issues are, right? So it is more of a mathematical kind of a vulnerability where certain values needs to be mathematically calculated, and if you overcome that, you trigger the vulnerability. So what happens is that this value satisfies the problem, but it has to be triggered twice basically. So in order to trigger it twice, we will find another value that will satisfy the situation. So what we do is we simply do a play, and then there is let's see what values get loaded. This time it is 9F, and definitely this value will also satisfy the situation. So now moving on, what we can see here is 9F is being moved. Certainly this value is greater than 80H, so yes, the branch is being taken. And when we do a AND operation on this particular value, we again get the 90, right? So getting the 90, we can definitely increase the particular value, and if we get an 80, it will actually decrease the allocated buffer. So again we can see the branch is being taken, and AL is getting moved to TL. Now here see, we allocated a buffer of 400 bytes, but here what we are getting is around somewhere an offset of 408, right? Which is clearly not good, right? And we just simply increased that particular offset. So this is what we can do, to trigger this vulnerability out. Next, moving on, we can see we are now in the quartz.dll file, and simply just running it completely, we are on to the WMP file, and we should also look at what is currently happening on the side of our the exploit handler, right? Okay, coming back, we move ahead. There is another allocation now, but this time let's just synchronize with this, and we can see there is notepad.exe and something which is clearly off the hook here. So quite interesting, huh? We can see the execution of something has taken place, and we have got access to the machine. So this entire video was all about knowing how the particular vulnerability actually gets triggered. It is basically a root cause analysis, and once we trigger this particular code, and we put the execution onto the path of our controlled buffer. We try to bypass the ASLR as well as dep. Hi guys, if the last 12 minutes have been absolutely reckless, yeah, that's the way vulnerability research is, I would say. If nothing has made sense to you, I wouldn't blame you, to be very honest, because it does take a lot of courage to step into vulnerability research and understand the inner workings of different software and different system files, right? Now what we have seen in the last video is there was a MIDI file, and specifying a certain value to the different events, because MIDI files is nothing but a series of events lined up together. If certain set of values are passed as events, they trigger a specific condition where you can increase or decrease the size of the buffer, right? Yet it gives rise to a vulnerability where you can actually write past the buffer length, and hence the heap overflow takes place. Now again, it was just something that I wanted to show to you guys, that how efficient you need to be once you step into it. Up next, we will be discussing about patch diffing in a very simple manner. Let's say when we talk about patch diffing, it is actually we are talking about the one-day vulnerabilities. You have a system file which is present on your system. It can be in the form of an executable, a DLL, or a driver file. Now Microsoft releases an update. That file gets replaced by the new file that comes as a part of the update itself. Now if you have both the versions of the file being replaced and the one which is replacing the older file, you can match both the files in IDA, identify the differences using bindef, and then get to know where the vulnerability could have been. Again, it is not something which is very straightforward, because there are multiple changes. Not only the vulnerability gets patched, but there are a lot of cosmetic changes as well. So we'll see in a few examples that how patch diffing tends to give you a better information on what the vulnerability could have been, and hence if you understand it well, you can actually create exploits, one-day exploits based on that. So let's look into it. So guys, let's look into the MS08067 net API again. I have two files in the MS08067 directory which I have created. The first one is called the patched, and the second one is the unpatched. Means the The unpatched file is from the system which has not applied this update which addresses the net API vulnerability, and the patched one is the file which was addressed in the update itself. So I have two versions of the files, which is netapi32.dll. I've opened both the files once in IDA, which has given me an IDA database which is around 5 MBs in size. So what I'll do is I'll first open the patched version of the file. So what I'll do is I'll first open the unpatched version of the file. Just double clicking it will open it in IDA. I can see there are around 1253 functions. I've already installed bindef, so I'll press Ctrl+C on my system and I'll click diff database. I'll go back to the ms08067 directory. Because I have already opened the unpatched one, I'll open the patched now. So this is where the patched file database is. I'll just open it. Bindef will take a little bit of time, and then it will give us these different matched functions which are present in both the files. So if we click on the similarity, what we can see is most of the functions are similar in both the files, but there are only changes present in 2 or 3 different functions. And because we already know that this vulnerability lies primarily onto the canonicalization of the path name, so what we can do is we can right click and view its flow graphs. So we'll see that how different both of them look like once placed side to side, right? So what you can see is there is a yellow box which denotes the functions which are changed, and what we can see here is in the unpatched one, the data's address at EBP+dest was put onto EAX, and then the value was pushed onto the stack. In the patched version of the file, this instruction was removed. So as you can see, there is no saving of that particular path name onto the stack anymore, hence fixing the vulnerability. So these are a few pointers you can get from patch diffing, and then you can deduce that how the vulnerability might have taken place. So summing it up, vulnerability research is tough and it takes time and practice. So please be patient. Do not hurry onto things. Try to learn internals as much as you can. Try reading different write-ups. There are a lot of different authors providing different set of write-ups over the Windows operating system and how they have discovered particular set of vulnerabilities. Try going through different POCs that are available over GitHub and various other places. The best way to search for POCs, this is my personal method. I search for POCs on Twitter, and I do get some very good content from there. Fuzzing is one of the best possible methods to discover vulnerabilities. Like we have seen that MIDI file exploit, right? The CVE 2012-0003. Now that in that particular case, the vulnerability only gets triggered if that mathematical equation is satisfied, right? Now for us, for humans, it would be very, very tough to actually compute that many values to make sure that this ends up in an exploitable condition. Hence fuzzing comes into the picture. It will try providing every single set of different values to discover various vulnerabilities, and hence it is the best possible way to find new vulnerabilities. Believe in yourself. Do reach out to prominent exploit developers on Twitter. There are just too many people. You can look into the people I am following. They are mostly the vulnerability researchers which I follow, who provide very good set of write-ups as well. And do thank these people as well, because they share this knowledge. So guys, thanks a lot. I hope you have learned something something new in the vulnerability research today. I wish you all the very best on your vulnerability research journey. Please feel free to reach out at Nipun Jaswal on Twitter or on Instagram or LinkedIn, perhaps Facebook. Thank you so much, guys. It was really fun to be on VULNCON 2020. Thanks a lot.
Welcome to Cyber Mayhem. The match will begin in 3, 2, 1. Flags have been planted. Your team has owned a user flag. Your team has cloned a machine. Warning, your team is losing availability points. May your experience lead you to victory.
Are you looking to take the next step in your cybersecurity career or open the door to cybersecurity from other areas in IT? Security Plus is the leading global certification that proves you have the core cybersecurity skills to advance your career. Nearly 600,000 IT pros have earned CompTIA Security Plus. Once you have Security Plus, the #1 core cybersecurity certification on the market, you can problem solve a wider variety of today's complex security issues. Prepare yourself with hands-on coverage of the latest trends and techniques. You'll learn the 5 areas of security, including attacks, threats, and vulnerabilities, architecture and design, implementation, operations and incident response, and GRC. Security Plus has become the gold standard for corporations and governments worldwide. For years, it has been the primary choice for fulfilling U.S. Department of Defense 8140-8570 compliance. Security Plus has demonstrated its ability to make sure you have the right foundation for your cyber career. Because Security Plus has helped organizations for years, it's no wonder that more and more people in various job roles are turning to Security Plus to enrich their security skill set. Study with the official CompTIA content exclusively developed for Security Plus and hit the ground running with the best cybersecurity certification on the market. Prepare yourself to address today's threats as well as anticipate the next attack. Head on over to comptia.org/security to learn more and secure your future.
So now it's time to call upon our surprise guest, that is Sripada Manasa Lakshmi, who will be sharing the stage with Abdesh Shukla. Without further ado, let's invite Sripada Manasa Lakshmi, who will be briefing you all on fileless malware analysis and emerging threat. So let's welcome her to give a theoretical explanation for the above. Over to you, ma'am.
Hello all. Today's topic is fileless malware, which is a malware which is on the rise. So, starting with it, let's have a brief introduction of it before going into deeper. As the security measures are getting better in this world, right, such as detecting, blocking both malware and cyber attacks, cyber criminals are continuing to develop new techniques to evade this particular detection which we are making. Unfortunately, for some organizations, some users, right, new techniques cyber criminals are using more and more today, which involves fileless exports. So these attacks are particularly effective in evading traditional antivirus solutions and are becoming more and more prevalent. Since it's essential to understand the risks of these types of attacks if you want to ensure continued success of organization or a user. So that's why we are going to take a look at different types of fileless attacks, how we are going to encounter them, how we are going to prevent them from happening into our organization or as a particular user. Starting with the introduction, fileless malware does not use traditional executables to carry out its activities in a simpler way. So, it does not use the file system, thereby it evades the signature-based detection systems mostly. The fileless malware attack is catastrophic for an enterprise because of its persistence level and its power to evade any type of antivirus solution that a particular organization would be using. The malware leverages the power of operating systems' trusted tools to accomplish the malicious intent successfully. To analyze such a malware, security professionals use forensic tools to trace the attacker, whereas the attacker is using anti-forensic tools to erase the traces which were made by them, as we already know. A quote is, "Always a cyber criminal is 1 foot ahead of a security professional." Fileless malware attacks does not download any kind of malicious files or write any content onto the disk in order to compromise the systems. The attacker exploits merely the vulnerable application to inject the malicious code directly into the memory of the main memory, that is. The attacker can also leverage the trusted and widely used applications, such as it could be a Microsoft Office, its administrative tools. A native Windows OS has usually PowerShell and WMI tools which run the scripts and load the malicious codes directly into the volatile memory. Now the thing is, these fileness malware have emerged in 2017 as a mainstream type of attack, and these methods have been developed for a while, but the Frodo, as it is written, Number of Beast, the Dark Avenger, these are very early examples of this type of fileless malware. After that, high profile fileless attacks such as hack of Democratic National Committee, Equifax breach, these were the high level fileless malware attacks which were done recently. The thing is, what makes fileless infections so insidious is also what it makes so effective. It is stealthy enough, that's why it is becoming more effective in this world. There are claims that fileless malware is undetectable by the antivirus solutions that we are using nowadays. This isn't literally true, but it proves that fileless malware attacks are a bit more stealthy than that of the normal malware attacks. Uh, because the antivirus solutions are basically using the signature based, anomaly and heuristic based type of attacks, right, which are traditional enough and are being evaded by this fileless malware attacks. So, starting with how did the malware evolve? Basically, this malware is a stealthy malware, as you already know, and is also called as non-malware. It basically lives in a memory, which is RAM, and doesn't leave any trace on the hard disk. It can evade some antivirus programs which are basically signature programs, that is a traditional program. It is also AVT, that is advanced volatile threat, categorized as advanced volatile threat. So basically according to some literature, there is a registry resident malware also, which basically install itself into the Windows registry in order to basically remain persistent while evading detection. And this type of malware basically calls back to the command and control server, from which the attacker can send further instructions to the compromised system, all without any file being written to the disk. And there is another class which is also called as memory only. These basically reside only in memory to basically evade the detection, and many of these come into two versions. The first one is basically called as a backdoor, which allows an attacker to basically gain the foothold in an organization, and another one is called as an advanced version, which offers additional features such as reconnaissance, data exfiltration, loss, etc. Next one is basically called as a fileless ransomware, and this ransomware is basically also used in a fileless technique to basically achieve the objective. Fileless ransomware is basically a malicious code which is either embedded in a document or written straight into memory using exploits. So the ransomware then uses legitimate administrative tools to encrypt the hostage files, and all without being written into the disk. Now these are the three types that are basically from the literature. let's go through how does the basically attack happen. So what is important to notice is that the attacker do not have to figure out how sneak is the malicious program is, right, in the antivirus or a malware defense, right. So most automated sensors cannot detect or command line alterations. A trained analyst can identify these scripts but often does not know where to look in the first place. So let's take this scenario. As you can see here, you are able to see a particular person clicking on a spam email, right. So we can say that a user is basically receiving a spoofed message that appears to be legitimate and which contains a link to a malicious website, and user clicks the link and enters the site. The malicious site basically loads and exploits the vulnerability in the Adobe Flash technology. Next, what happens is the Windows PowerShell is basically launched with the capability to run the instructions to the command line only through the memory level. Now after that, the PowerShell basically runs the script from the command and control server. Attackers then basically gain the full control and can relocate the scripts and steal the user's data. After that, lastly, attackers gain full control, locate the scripts and gain and steal the user's data. With this, we can say that fileless attacks make use of particular applications that are installed in user's computer and known to be safe enough. So, most commonly, these attacks exploit kits target frequently used applications such as web browsers, Microsoft Office, Adobe Reader, and more. So this allows the attacker to run basically a malicious code that can exploit and inject into the device memory level, making fileless attacks more persistent and difficult to be detected. Possible entry points. So possible entry points that where from the basically your fileless malware enter your systems or the organization, right? So first thing is phishing, social engineering. So attacker can make a phished link and he can farm. He can send the link to the user or a target, you can say, and that basically gets downloaded and it loads into the PC's memory, enables the attacker to basically remotely load the codes via scripts and capture your users data, etc., which is being confidential. Second thing is any applications which you are already installed, such as Microsoft Word or JavaScript. So this can be hijacked and the attack could be executed. Another thing is native and highly trusted applications such as WMI or you can say PowerShell also gives invitation to these kind of attacks. Basically, fileless malware basically targets the legitimate programs remotely. So when it is being targeting remotely, it is basically stealthy enough, right. Security analysts need to put more effort in detection, right. So in the case of PowerShell attacks, right, fileless malware embeds into the malware scripts into legitimate PowerShell scripts and launches it and runs as a normal process. So next one is data infiltration. Usually this makes it makes, right, these attacks more widespread in the tools of Microsoft PowerShell, which can be used to basically infiltrate and connect to multiple machines. So fifth one is your legitimate looking websites. You already know that your cyber criminals can create fraudulent websites which are being designed to trap the people, such as waterhole attack, phishing, etc. So they are they are using some homographic attack, etc., to make such kind of social engineered websites, and people are usually clicking on them and they can download some Adobe Flash player could be there, or some Flash plugins of any kind could be there, which could allow the malicious code to basically run into the browser history, etc. So these are the possible entry points. Coming to the next is your types of fileless malware attacks. So there are three kinds, that is Windows registry, memory code, and script based. So taking up a glimpse on them, basically Windows registry means, registry is basically a database for storing low level settings of Windows operating system, as we already know, and also store some critical applications too in the registry. So there the malware authors basically manage to store complete malicious code into the registry in an encrypted manner, so to make it undetected, so that the antiviruses are not scanning up the registries. So to obtain the persistence level, it can exploit some operating system thumbnails cache into the registry, and the file is basically self-destructible. So once it starts, it can destruct itself too, right? So in order to maintain the persistence, or once its work is being done. So you can say that this persistence mechanism is basically done through the JavaScript code. So JavaScript code is added into the registry and is executed by the legitimate Windows file. It could be mshta.exe or mshtml.dll, etc., which could basically create the persistence. Next is your memory resident malware. This malware basically wholly resides into the main memory. This is also called as a memory code injection. It doesn't touch any kind of file systems. It is usually uses legitimate processes, authentic Windows files basically to execute, and stays there until it is being triggered. So it's basically onto the user. When it gets triggered, then it works, right? So the persistence level is basically, I'll give you an example through a fileless malware that is called as Povlix. It is a fileless malware, and further it was also being developed into a file-based malware which is called as Povlix. So Povlix basically uses the system registries, right, to achieve the persistence. To stay undetected, it basically has two registries to run the key. So the first one is in the form of JavaScript program, which is being encoded, data written under the value, and the other one is the autorun, which is an entry that reads and decodes the encoded JavaScript data. So that's about your memory code injection, also called as memory resident malware. Other than this, we are having a script-based techniques. This is having more, you can say, persistence level and more stealthiness. So script-based techniques may not be completely fileless, you can say, but they are undetectable. So it is basically, let me give you an example for this. You are having some malwares called as Operation Cobalt Kitty, or you can say Samsung ransomware. Both malware attacks are common fileless malware attacks. So Samsung is basically considered as semi-fileless, right? So same as the Operation Cobalt Kitty too. So both are semi-fileless, but you can say that they are challenging to be detected and to be protected against. So next thing, which is quite important in codes, is how to defend us. So as you can see, understand the process itself, so you will enjoy the success and you will enjoy that your systems are not having the fileless malware. So if a person is not able to understand the process, he won't be able to defend. So prevention is better than cure, as we already know. So cure is very difficult to be done other than the prevention. So as we can see in the slides, I'll be going through a bit some reasons why, while our endpoint solutions are being so short enough, right? So nowadays each company is having some solutions with them. Is it okay to have them, or we should have more remediations for them? So basically nowadays the organizations or the systems we are having cannot defend against the unknown threats because of the antiviruses that we are using. So the knowledge base behind the unknown threats is very limited enough. We are using signature based, or we can say anomaly or heuristic, which is not giving us foolproof towards the, you can say, your fileless attacks or the new attacks which are being generated, zero D vulnerabilities or zero D attacks. Next is another thing is we are having very the nowadays we are having the, limited visibility. So you can say that users or the organization have limited visibility into a file, right? Once it enters a device, we only know how to run them, we don't know what's running behind it, right? So we are not monitoring the files which are being coming and going through the applications or normal files, etc. Next is automation is inefficient. So yeah, actually automation is not being done because we don't rely more on automation because our traditional technique are manual enough. So we are not able to push ourselves to the automated responses and the remediation because we are still into a manual process. So in order to stop all these, as I already told you that prevention is better than cure, we should have some possible ways, right? It is not simple enough, as we already know. We need to have some updated antivirus definition files. All should be the tools, etc. should be updated and should guide us in the fileless malware attacks, right? You can also say that endpoint solution detection and response should be there, right? Which relies on continuous and real-time monitoring of the phishing emails, right? So that nobody is clicking onto it. Incoming, outgoing traffic should be basically sniffed, and everything should be protected. Unwanted tasks should be stopped, etc. We should be careful while downloading anything. We should be up to date. We should update our browsers. We should watch for the social engineering being done to us. So there are the two things as mentioned here, that the ability to see and measure what's happening. It's very important that you need to see and measure that what's happening basically. And the another thing is the ability to control the state of the targeted system. That's in our hands, right? So everything lies in our hands, that how are we going to basically remediate after a particular process being done. So this was all about your fileless malware and attack. Coming to basic summary before wrapping it up. So you can say that fileless malware doesn't have a source code as the file-based malware. Fileless malware doesn't have a malicious file as a file-based malware. Fileless malware doesn't have a malicious process as a file-based malware. It basically trusts the OS processes, not user processes I'm talking about. It's very complex. Detection is very complex, right? Persistence is very low, and it basically comes in JavaScript, WMI, Flash, C script, PowerShell, etc. And it basically targets many different operating systems and many different path level combinations. There are many obfuscation methods too, such as encryption, randomization, data obfuscation, white spaces, encoding, Unicode values, escaping them, string splitting, etc. Antivirus detection and sandbox detection both are not possible in this case. So you can say that fileless attacks are designed to behave like a benign process in the system, so they may not alarm as an anomaly, so they are very difficult to detect. So I hope you got to know that what are fileless malware attacks, etc. So thank you so much. Have a nice day.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Now it's time for Abdesh Shukla, who will be giving a demonstration for the explanation on fileless malware analysis and emerging threat.
In this demonstration, I am going to explain the concept of fileless malware analysis with the help of in-memory execution of malicious PowerShell object. For this demonstration, I am going to use this particular file, which includes a macro which will get executed, and this file is crafted in such a manner that will take advantage of human psychology. I will explain this process in step by step, which will provide you in-depth understanding of fileless malware analysis process. So first step, open this file. After opening, you can check it out. There is a message of security warning, but this file has showing something confidential like account statement and giving or providing a message to the user. Click enable to check it. Now try to understand what attacker is trying to do here. Attacker want to take advantage of human psychology. Human is very much curious about such things. If the person who is accessing this file, he is not aware about this kind of thing, he will go click on option and click on enable. Once he will click on enable, that malicious PowerShell object will get executed in memory. No malicious file is downloaded in system, and attacker is able to fulfill his intention or motive, and your system will get compromised. I will explain you how you can analyze the thing. First, we will see that what the code will included in the macro before executing it. So I will go on the option view. In the macro section, view macros. Once you click on it, you can able to see there is a multiple options are coming. Once you will able to see the multiple options are coming, you need to click on edit, and once you click on the edit, you can able to check there is a some code which is reflected. I will explain this code step by step so you can analyze it. So first thing, auto open means automatically get open, and after that it is going to call method 1. You can check it out. There are two methods are reflected. One is method 1, one is method 2, where method 2 is commented out but method 1 is executing. So once this document will get open, and after opening, someone enable the macro, the method 1 will get called, and when the method 1 will called, the first line will get executed. Now try to understand the meaning of first line. The first line code says access the root of WMI namespace. With the first line, it is trying to access the root of WMI namespace. Now what comes in your mind? What is WMI? WMI is a Windows management instrumentation. You can study about it in detail. It is help in management process of Windows system. Second line, set proc wmi.get win32 process. This line is used for interacting Windows processes. Third line is very important, because in the third line what attacker is trying to do, attacker is trying to create process and one new object web client, And what it is downloading the malicious things from this link, and it is not downloading in system, it is downloading for in-memory execution, and the process will start executing in the memory. So from here you can analyze that how much dangerous this macro it is. Here in the second step is not related to the fileless malware, because in this system it is downloading a file in the system. In the first method it is not downloading any file in the system, it is directly executing file from this particular location in memory. So no traces will left behind in the system. Detecting fileless malware is difficult as compared to detecting the malware which is associated some file in local system. Now we will see that what happen if we will click on that particular macro. So for that particular process I will close it. I will close whole document. Before executing it, try to analyze the processes which are running in your system. Right click on Start Task Manager. You can check it out how many processes are running in my system. Once we will check it out, then what I will do, I started one process, that is Word document. After checking this particular process which is related to Word document, you can check it out the process manager. One more process will started with the name of winword.exe. Now we are going to see the impact of executing this macro. Till now you have seen that we did the detailed analysis of it, how view, then we will go on the macros, view macros, and we click on edit, and we analyze the complete code segment which is reflected over here. Now I am going to enable and execute it and see the impact of this. So how we can execute, we just need to click on enable, and you can check it out. Once I have clicked on the enable, this PowerShell code will get executed. So no need to worry about it. If this PowerShell code will get executed, so when you analyze here, you can check it out. One PowerShell process will get started in background, and that PowerShell process is associated with WMI prvsc.exe. Now whenever again and again I will open this document, suppose that I closed it, and you can check this PowerShell process is closed. Close this document again, and again open this document. Once I open the document, and you can check this particular PowerShell process is enabled. Now you can go here and you can check it out. So you can see that in process in memory execution of malicious PowerShell object is started. This is very good example of fileless malware, and whatever this code is crafted, it is start performing that particular function. So you can check it out again. Once again you will see that when I will close this, either I will close this document, I will make it much more clear, just wait for a minute. You can check it out, and it is associated with this document. Apart from this PowerShell window, so you can check it out. Once we will close this PowerShell window or this document, this will get closed. So we will come here and you check it out. PowerShell is enabled right now. Once I clicked on closed, this is removed. Okay, so similarly check it for once I will open this PowerShell, this file, the PowerShell process, that is malicious process, will get started. So wait for a minute, you can check it out. Once I have enabled, you can check this PowerShell process is started. So this is the demonstration part of fileless malware analysis. Thank you so much.
Welcome to Cyber Mayhem. The match will begin in 3, 2, 1. Flags have been planted. Your team has owned a user flag. Your team has cloned a machine. Warning, your team is losing availability points. May your experience lead you to victory.
Are you looking to take the next step in your cybersecurity career or open the door to cybersecurity from other areas in IT? Security Plus is the leading global certification that proves you have the core cybersecurity skills to advance your career. Nearly 600,000 IT pros have earned CompTIA Security Plus. Once you have Security Plus, the #1 core cybersecurity certification on the market, you can problem solve a wider variety of today's complex security issues. Prepare yourself with hands-on coverage of the latest trends and techniques. You'll learn the 5 areas of security, including attacks, threats, and vulnerabilities, architecture and design, implementation, operations and incident response, and GRC. Security Plus has become the gold standard for corporations and governments worldwide. For years, it has been the primary choice for fulfilling U.S. Department of Defense 8140-8570 compliance. Security Plus has demonstrated its ability to make sure you have the right foundation for your cyber career. Because Security Plus has helped organizations for years, it's no wonder that more and more people in various job roles are turning to Security Plus to enrich their security skill set. Study with the official CompTIA content exclusively developed for Security Plus and hit the ground running with the best cybersecurity certification on the market. Prepare yourself to address today's threats as well as anticipate the next attack. Head on over to comptia.org/security to learn more and secure your future.
Time surely flies fast. So we are only left with one talk for the day. It's my immense pleasure to call upon Urvesh Thakkar, who will talk about overview of cyber fast forensics for automated IR. So buckle up amigos, because it is going to be an awesome ride.
Hello and welcome audience to this amazing conference VULNCON 2020. My name is Urvesh and my topic will be very small. I'm going to introduce on a very small talk, but it will be a very useful talk probably, I believe, on the topic of cyber triage, fast forensics for automated IR, that is incident response. So we are going to use this particular software called cyber triage to perform some cool amazing stuff, which we'll discover in a moment or so. But before we actually dive into this talk, one thing that I would like to clear out as a disclaimer, that no cyber triage or nor VULNCON or anybody has sponsored me for presenting on this particular topic. It's not something that I'm promoting a product or something, but yeah, it's kind of a a small workshop thing that I could like to present, that how can we use this particular useful software cyber triage for performing fast forensics and automated incident response. So let's get started into this particular talk. Before we jump into cyber triage, I would like to say a bit about myself. So my name is Urvesh Thakkar and I'm president at Anti-Cybercrime Society, R&D associated with Cybercrime Helpline LLP. Apart from that, I have been working as senior information security instructor at the Hacktivist and as a cybercrime advisor at these cyber agents. My area of interest, you could see, are social engineering, OSINT, digital forensics, cyber psychology, and of course exploitation. So this is a little bit about me, right? You can get in touch with me via my website, that is www.thegeekboy.net. Now, what are we going to see in this particular talk? So the talk is divided into three sections. Number one, what is cyber triage and the overview, why it is useful. Number two, disk and memory image analysis. These two are the options that we are going to look at. And number three, the conclusion. Correct? So this is the overall generalized summary of this particular talk. Let's go deep. So I've been talking about this term cyber triage. So what is this cyber triage and what is this software basically? Now it is a software that provides automated incident response capability and it runs on all versions of Windows. So this particular software, cyber triage, is an automated IR software which supports all the version of Windows, and it is efficient in processing EO1 or raw disk images as well as process memory capture. So as well as the disk images as well as the memory dumps, that is the RAM dump. It can be used to analyze disk image files either in the form of EO1 or raw or RAM files, the memory dumps that we generally call it. This particular tool, it's developed by Brain Carrier, the SultKit, and Autopsy. So these are the most famous names that you could have already heard of before. I'm not sure, right? But this particular tool is developed by, you could say, the masters in their own respective forensic fields, brain carrier, sleuthkit, and autopsy, right? So this is a very capable and good software which you could say that we are going to use today for performing disk or memory IR, you could basically say. And I'm not going to go so deep inside this software that how to do everything step by step, right? My entire talk will be based on to give you a generalized idea that what this particular software is all about and how it can be useful for you, correct? So if you look at the official definition of cyber triage that the company itself says is, cyber triage is an incident response software that enables IT and information security incident responders to collect, analyze, and act more quickly when a threat has been identified. With cyber triage, user can analyze a computer to determine whether a computer was compromised or not. So obviously, why actually do we analyze the memory dumps, or why do we even analyze disk images in the form of raw or EO1, right? So you could have heard about various software such as autopsy is there, FTK disk imager is there, and various forensic softwares, OS forensics, right? So what is the need of actually analyzing and evaluating on memory dumps, or you could say disk images, so that we could get a better forensic insight that what was there inside that disk, what was there, what was the procedure during that memory dump, what was there inside the RAM, right? What the processes were, which processes were going on in the back end, which were the users that were involved in those processes, correct? So using this we could actually get a good insight on the forensic information. So going one step ahead, to perform all this, there's a reason we are using cyber triage, because it is an automated IR tool, right? So manual investigation is quite less inside this cyber triage. One who are new into this field of forensics or IR can directly use cyber triage as a beginner and get started with investigating out. It's so easy to use and to understand. That's the reason we are focusing this particular talk on cyber triage, so that this talk or this particular session could help you to understand about this potential software, and you could use it in your day-to-day purposes for analyzing memory dumps and disk images which are in the form of raw or EO1, correct? And this will actually automatically categorize them as per the threats and as per what is the information and how it is categorized into this particular software, which obviously we are going to look at also when we actually perform a demonstration, a small quick demonstration. Talking about the plans that cyber triage provides, so it's not something that this is a paid tool or you need to use the paid one only, or you need to invest some amount. Yeah, there are paid plans as well, but the very good news is about this particular software cyber triage that it comes with a free plan as well, which you can use. And this free plan is also fully packed of amazing features, and you could perform many things on it, like your day in day out analysis task, of you could say memory dump or disk images can be done very or highly efficiently using this particular software. So there are three plans as follows. Number one is light, then comes standard, and the last is the team. So even if you go up for the evaluation of the free plan, it helps us to collect volatile and file system data, collects to USB drive, analyzes memory using volatility, pivot through collected data to determine scope, view timeline threads to get context, and generate HTML and Cybox reports. So one thing that I would like to mention over here is it uses volatility in the backend to process RAM memory dumps, whatever the memory dumps we are doing. It uses volatility to do all this backend task, and the light plans come with all of these following things, followed by standard, which have some additional features, and followed by team, which has some additional features. But as a standalone, as a single user, it is not much differentiating factor for using standard or team in comparison with light. So as a beginner, as a fresher, as a start, or even as a professional, if you're working, if you have this particular light version of cyber triage individually running on a single system, then you are actually good to go to perform many of the amazing things. Now, how does this entire process of cyber triage works? So first of all, a new session is created in cyber triage. The collection tool is sent to the endpoint over network or USB. So this particular point over here, we are also going to see when we actually see how cyber triage looks in a phase of a software. But what cyber triage allows us to do, it allows this particular collection tool to run individually on a particular host and do the collection and analysis, or we can manually provide it to run it on individually, that it on a particular endpoint or a network or on a USB as well, as you can see over the network or USB, or else we could directly input the disk image file in the form of raw or EO1, or directly supply the raw MEM memory dump file to directly analyze it inside cyber triage. So these many options are available inside this particular software. So the collection tool is sent to the endpoint wherever we want to actually deploy it on the particular network or a USB. Then it goes to the further step wherein suspicious data is flagged to help make analysis, or to help the analysis to make decisions based on the calculations or the processes or the users or the suspicious things, the bad things that are going around inside that particular disk image or over there or inside that particular memory file. Then it further goes to the automated malware analysis and find malwares for the known indicators. So it has automated malware analysis functioning as well. Then it goes to the volatile registry and file data are collected using this volatile registry and file data module. So this is the entire four or five chain working process for this particular software, cyber triage. It's completely automated. You just have to do a little bit of changes here and there and provide a properly build up either a RAM dump or a disk image file, right, in the form of EO1 or a raw. That's all, and it will automatically do all the things for you. No need to do anything. Getting started, so we'll quickly see that how we could actually get started with this cyber triage. So all we need to do is basically visit this particular link, cybertriage.com, and we can download this particular software via their official website. So here is the particular website for cyber triage. All you need to do is click on download, and it will download the evaluation version for you, that is try cyber triage, right? And you can fill in all the details to get the evaluation version, that is the free copy, right, for a temporary period of time. Next, after, you will find this particular zip file of cyber triage once you actually download it, and inside this zip file there will be 3 consecutive files that you will find: cyber triage evaluation guide as a PDF. They also provide you a user guide, and definitely it's worth reading this particular user guide. It's quite comprehensive and quite in-depth, and this is the official MSI executable for cyber triage, which you can double click on it. And like any other software installation, it's the same. Just double click on it, choose next, or if you want to change the destination, right? So in my case it is already installed, so it's not asking me for any installation procedure, right? Just choose a destination and go for next and install that particular tool, cyber triage. Once downloaded, you can find this tool, you can search it on the desktop icon, or you can see cyber triage 2.14.1, the particular version which I'm using. And let me show you how this particular software looks like. So here is our cyber triage software, which is a standard edition that we are using currently. So here you will get a list of options: new session, open session, and open incident. Apart from that, let us first go into this particular options, get evaluation data. It is this evaluation data, this get evaluation data, it actually gives you temporary file which you can analyze and see how the software is working. If you want to demonstrate this software or you want to try out this software, it is not necessary that you need to create a memory dump or create a raw disk image, then analyze it, which is a long time consuming process. You see the memory dump and the disk images, they range from, if it's a memory dump, then depending upon your RAM side, it starts from 8 to 10 gigabytes. If it's a disk image, then it could go up to 50, 60, even 20, 30, whatever the range is. The disk images in the form of raw or EO1 are of that big sizes. So it's not necessary that you first create up a memory dump and provide a memory dump or provide a raw image over here for analysis and use the software. What you could do is get evaluation data, use this evaluation data to see how the software is working. and how the options are working inside this particular software. And we are going to do this particular step only. We are actually going to see the evaluation data. We are not going to see any real-time memory analysis or any real-time disk analysis, because obviously the point is very simple. It's a very long time consuming process. If you are good to go with this, you can do the same thing, or else you can create your own memory dump or a disk image of your pen drive or something and push it inside this particular software for further analysis. The second option is for collection tools. So it's for Amazon S3 bucket collection tools, which I won't go deep into it, right? It is no way regarding the things that we want as for this particular talk, right? The entire description or the entire brief for this extract collection tool is given in the user guide of Cyber Triage, which you can go through. It's for Amazon AWS S3 buckets. We are interested in these options, and you will see there are a lot of options. The very first is local NSRL, that is the National Software Reference Library. It is actually a database of the softwares which you can actually input that particular file over here, but we won't be touching it. We won't be using any NSRL library file. Then are the PS executable settings, which used when you are actually using Cyber Triage for on a particular network or on USB to run the tool on a particular endpoint. So we also won't play around with that particular option. But one thing that we will choose is we will choose the time zone as UTC, because that's the only default time zone used for forensic analysis. So we'll choose UTC. Network settings are for them who actually wants to use a particular proxy for using this particular software. Reputation service, you could say, is for malware. If you want to clear up the malware cache, online file reputation service build up. So if you are actually analyzing files with the internet connected inside Cyber Triage, so it will actually involve third-party services or 40+ services to indulge and scan for malware threats. If not, then it will use the pre-configured offline rules. Then deployment mode. So here we don't have a team or a enterprise version, so we are up to with the standard single version of deployment. Good list are the list of good things that it knows, the list of good services and all, the rules, the port type, right? Comments, the scope. Bad things are for the suspicious ones. You can see all these are the suspicious files, and in fact you can import, if you have a custom data set according to this particular format, you can import that particular data set of good or bad things inside this particular software to even enhance your rule and search results. Dynamic DNS, it contains the dynamic DNS domains based on the name server, and it has the by default dynamic DNS ranges. You can even add more. License info obviously contains what kind of license you are using for this particular software. I'll click OK, and we'll see now this particular section. So open session is for any of the leftover session or any of the leftover incident analysis that you have done before. If you have that particular project save, you can open it. Open incident, a particular project file which has already been analyzed in form of an incident. You can open up that incident to reanalyze it. Here we are going to choose new session. You can see live automatic. This option is used when we want to actually push this particular collection tool to the particular host as an endpoint automatically, and data will be sent over the network. Live manual, again the same collection tool when we want to actually copy it to the particular host, but it is entirely manually processed. We have to manually deploy it to the particular endpoint or the host. Live file, this is actually again manual method. If you have a particular live evaluation file that is residing in a USB or a format and that kind of stuff, so we can choose the live file option. The most interesting ones that you have to use when you actually use this particular software is the disk image or the memory image. I mean, it's not something that you have to use, but these are the two options, disk image and memory image, that are maximum used by me as well as any other person using this Cyber Triage software for the standard edition as I'm talking about, right? So these two are the most useful and the most used options. If you choose disk image, you have to enter the incident name as per your choice. Enter the name of the host name. You can choose localhost, just type localhost and done over here. If you have a particular range of host names, you can add that. Incident name you can add according to your choice. The source file, here you have to provide the disk image file in the form of EO1 or RAW. and then just click on continue and start analyzing that particular file. At the same time, if I go to memory image, at the incident name, at the host name, at the source file, so just as an example, I'll choose this particular memory dump which I have for my own RAM. I'll choose this, and rest everything I'll choose as by default. I don't want to provide it with a set of volatility profile or KBG offset. Incident name I can choose 1 just for an example, right? And click continue. So as soon as you click continue, you can see there are various options for disk image analysis and for memory analysis, which are auto by default selected, right? You can actually even choose a custom scan, and whatever scans that are associated either with disk or either with RAM are options available over here. So here I'm choosing a memory scan. So inside memory, programs run can be scanned. Inside memory, startup items can be scanned. Inside memory, processes, networks can be scanned, correct? If you go up to the disk analysis, then you can go for accounts, logins, network shares, which is a by default option selected. You can choose custom scan. This same process is applied for disk image scan. The same process is applied for memory image scan. You can also choose the option of skip file scan, so it will go with the by defaults and it will start the collection. Once you start the collection, it will take a lot of time to do this particular task. So if I choose start collection, it will take a lot of time, and I don't basically want to go like extend this particular talk for hours and hours till the scan is complete. So you can do this thing. What I will choose is, I'll choose demo logs, you could say evaluation data, to show you how the software works in real time. So I'll choose open up a session, and here you can see I have a by default session created, that is a default session which is evaluation session, correct? And I'll choose open session. So this session over here was pre-analyzed in the form of an evaluation data, or you could say demo data, and this is how the software will look when your memory scan or disk image scan is completed successfully. You can see that this is a particular dashboard which shows quite a lot of information: high threats, suspicious threats, system information. You can see the timeline chart, status, background task if there are running, any background task if it is completed or it's running, recent messages, error messages. This is the interesting stuff on the left hand side that we are focused on. So bad items, there are 3. You can see that particular bad items. So Java performance tester.exe, which was found to be a potential malware using Java, right? And bad item CMD is put it up as a bad item in a thread just because it was a startup program. It was listed as a startup program. So whenever the system used to reboot it, the CMD used to auto start it. So probably the CMD is executing some suspicious command in the backend, which is accessibility feature of a backdoor detected. You can see, right? So you can actually choose bad it or good it. If you think if it's false positive, you can choose option of good it. You can add comments on this particular thing. So I can add suspicious for my own reference. And then if I click OK, you can see a particular user comment suspicious is added over here. Suspicious items, there are 13 suspicious items as per the thread. So you can see AMCE JDOE, which is a user account, ongoing RDP connection to 7 different hosts. So this particular user was connecting to RDP. Now that could be a potential threat. If I go over here, so you could see the malware. If there are any malware, you could say malware trace is found. Similarly, you can check in for all this information. Windows Defender cleanup, it was a triggered task run from a program data, right? Then Windows System 32, there was some PowerShell execution going on in the back end, right? In your case, if you actually provide up a disk image file, right, so it automatically sees for all the suspicious things that are there around. If there are any password dumpers or you could say malwares that were particular in that particular Windows disk image, or in case of memory, in case of RAM, it could look out for unusual processes that were running. It would look out for unusual network connections that were running, all those stuff. If I go back to users and see accounts, or you can see all these list of accounts that were there inside which this particular JDOE was quite suspicious. So this particular JDOE account was not an administrative account, but the suspicious activity was that it connected to RDP connections, like to 7 different hosts. If you see the logins, you can get the login information, and this basically shows where the RDP connection was also going on, right? And each and every tab you visit, actually you can export it in the form of a table as a CSV format. This is quite amazing option over here. Program run. So this particular Java was executed at this particular program, which we saw in the suspicious items, or sorry, in the bad items, which was a malware. Probably it has triggered as, correct. And these were the programs. You can see Notepad exe, Notepad++ was there inside the system. VS Launcher, it could be Visual Studio. Wireshark was there present in the system, which was executed. If there are any web artifacts found, it will show up over here. Malware, there is a separate, as I said during the chain how it's working, we saw it as an automated malware program as well. It performs automated malware analysis. You can see Windows System 32 there in the malware group. If I extend this particular tab, Windows System 32 CMD exe was a particular action that was suspicious, that was performed. If I bring up this particular tab above, you can see all the information related to this particular thing, when it was created and when it was executed, the source path where it was, bad accessibility feature to a backdoor detected, right? Then you can see the files, you can see process, you can see execution history, you can see startup item, you can see session and analysis result, correct. Triggered task, you can see information about all the triggered tasks either executed by the user or they were in the startup. Processes, all the process information you can see. Active connections, there were some active connections that were going on between these particular exe files to using this particular port to this particular remote host. So there could be a backdoor. Listening ports, these were the listening ports information you could see over here. You could even expand this particular stuff to see what's all inside it. Then DNS cache, you can see as per the DNS information it had, it automatically gave us the DNS cache information over here, right. So this is how this entire tool works on the process of automated IR and detecting suspicious activities. Apart from it, you could actually create automated reports. So if you choose report over here in the dashboard, choose format HTML, click go. It will tell you where you want to save this particular report. I'll choose desktop, choose select folder, open report. It will open up the following report that I have saved or that I've exported in a particular HTML format. See, this report is saved, and in fact, even you could click on view details to view more information. The entire summary of this particular scan or that particular memory scan or the disk scan we had done, that everything is present in this particular report. You can use this report for your further analysis or for sharing as a reference, right? And this is all about this particular cyber triage tool. So the ultimate conclusion is you can use this particular cyber triage tool performing automated forensics for IR, incident response, either on memory dumps, that is RAM, or on disk images. And it supports two formats, EO1 and RAW. And RAW is a universal thing which I expect all of you knows, right? So it accepts RAW. You can actually make up a RAW image and provide it over here, or a memory file, memory process, memory dump, you could say. One thing that I would like to add up as a note, this software won't help you in creating the RAW, or this software won't help you in creating the memory dumps. You have to use your own software, either any of you could use Volatility or FTK Disk Imager for creation of disk images in the form of RAW. But the raw or the EO1 images of the disks or the memory dumps are not created inside this software. You should be ready with your memory dump and your disk images in hand before using this software. So this software won't help you in creating memory dumps or creating disk image in the form of raw or EO1. That you have to do using your any software or any favorite tool that you are using. Correct? So this is the one point. It is just used for analysis. It is not used for creation of memory dump or creation of raw disk images. It is only used for analysis of pre-created memory dumps or pre-created disk images. So I'll come back to the PPT. So concluding this particular talk on cyber triage by saying that this software will actually help you all to perform a lot of interesting practicals, demonstrations, right? If you are new to this particular field of forensics or something, you could definitely try this tool out. Definitely check out this software. And it is developed by, you could say, some of the great companies and one of the great person, right? So obviously it is quite powerful, it is quite quick and handy, right? And if you are a newbie, as you saw, it was so easy. Even if a fresher, is new into this field of forensics or memory analysis or disk analysis and have a raw image, can load up this particular thing inside it, this cyber triage, and can get started with collecting the evidences or seeing what are the forensic information or the incident IR response according to the memory dump or the disk image file provided, right? So I definitely believe that you enjoyed this particular talk. Although it was a small talk and it was not that involving or that energetic, you could say, like no hardcore hacking stuff. It's not regarding that. It's a forensic stuff, right? But I definitely believe that you like this particular talk and you'll definitely give a shot to this particular tool, cyber triage. Ultimately, I'll say thank you to everyone who actually attended this VULNCON conference. Thank you to the entire VULNCON team for inviting me for this particular conference. It's my pleasure to be here. If you have any questions, you can drop them out at urvesh@anticybercrime.org and visit the website of Anti-Cybercrime for further information about me or get connected with me. So I believe you enjoyed this particular session. Do get in touch with me via LinkedIn as well. If you're not comfortable in sending emails, you can search for Urvesh Thakkar on LinkedIn and I'll be happy to connect with you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. Well, honestly telling, it's breaking my heart to bid a farewell, but not without showing our sincere appreciation to them who helped us make this event a successful hit. First, thanking all the speakers who marked their presence in the event, gave amazing talks, and gave you all something to learn, to research about. Hope you all learned a lot. In case you missed something, don't worry, you can watch it all over again. Next, moving on to thanking our sponsors for contributing and supporting us. Thanks to Google Cloud, Offensive Security, Hack the Box, CompTIA, Bugcrowd, HackerOne, Hacker Associate, Spicy, and CyberExplore. Next on the list are our community partners who helped us a lot and also contributed in better reach. Thanks a lot to XploitWizer, Anti-Cybercrime Society, Axial, CyberGrab, Cyanox, DarkArmy, iCode, ITC, and vulnfreak. Also, thanks to our educational partner, that is Lovely Professional University, Fagwara, Punjab, India.